going on a beautiful afternoon. Perfect temperature. There's a few clouds in the sky, which is quite nice. A little bit of shade here and there, and lots of impalas out and about as we're getting going. I think they're all coming for a nice drink. It's been a little bit warm during the hot parts of the day, so it would be very nice for these impalas just to come down. So you can see quite a few of them here. Oh, and there's a nyala too. There's a little nyala male off to our side here as well. Now, like I was saying, these guys will have been coming down to get a bit of water. It has been very warm, so it's just the perfect place to come down. Gowrie Dam, now that it holds so much water, is really a good place to come and get a nice afternoon drink. Alright, but we are going to carry on because we've got places to be and lots of other animals that we want to try and go and find. I want to go and try and see if I can find the royal family this afternoon. So, hello impalas. It's amazing how healthy they're looking. 6 months ago they were looking a little bit bedraggled, most of them, but they're all looking very healthy again, so nice to see. This is a very large herd of impalas. This is the herd that we see most evenings on quarantine. When you come up onto quarantine on the way home at night, there's always this big grouping of impalas that's spread out over quarantine, and it's a nice way to get home. It always feels quite good. And when you know there's no impalas on quarantine, then something is afoot and something is around. A little nyala as well. Hello, little one. So a little nyala that's just bounding off. Where's your mom? Oh, there's your mom. So the mother is just behind the bush there. She's just sitting in the nice shade, and this little one is also enjoying a bit of shade near mom. I thought it was by itself for a little bit. I didn't see mom until a little bit later. They are very pretty little animals, aren't they? When they're small, even more so. This one's grown up a little bit, but when they are brand new little babies that have just been born, they are very cute indeed. You can see she's still a little bit jumpy, and that's pretty much the nature of a nyala. A nyala is typically in a thicket, a dense bush area, and so when they're out and about and you've stopped and you looked at them and there's a noise around them, they tend to be a little bit jumpy and a bit flighty. So it's not unusual for them. Now, I think today is going to be a very good day to do a spot of birding as well. There was quite a number of insects around last night, and during the day today we've had a few, so I think today is going to be a good day for birding. So with this warmer weather, birds are going to be out and about and moving around. Now, that squawking you're hearing is the crowned lapwings. They're a little bit upset that I've disturbed them. They often make quite a racket as you go past. They're probably one of the noisiest birds we have out here. It's incredible actually to see the road. The road is just one big mass of impala tracks at this stage. There are 1 or 2 zebra tracks inside here, but it's just literally a smear of impalas. So that whole herd must have been walking around here. Probably find they spend most of the day in these thicker areas where it was a little bit more shady and not so hot as it would have been out in the open areas that they're in now. So they've now moved out as it's cooling down a little bit. Alright guys, so it's time to get the show started. So for now I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll see you all a little bit later.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody, especially the kids from Hampton Oaks, Arrowhead and Kingston schools. This is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
We are driving currently down towards a dam over here. It's quite a warm afternoon here in the eastern lowveld of South Africa. That means the lowlands of the world's most beautiful country, South Africa. My name is James Hendry. On camera today is Brian and his very well-dressed thumb. I'm not alone out here. Tristan is also out on drive and Taylor will be out on walk. And in the final control, Megan May Nelson is talking in our ears. Now, the reason that is very important is because we want to have all of your questions, please, kids. So send us through your questions. You just ask your teacher, she will then send them through to us, and we will do our level best to answer any questions that you have about the animals that we're seeing, about Africa, about South Africa, about safaris, about anything else that you'd like. And hopefully we'll show you some spectacular things. Now, my plan this afternoon is to see if I can't find a leopard and her 2 cubs that have been seen in this area very recently. So the first thing for us to do is stop here and have a little bit of a listen. Like I said, it is about 82 degrees Fahrenheit, or 83 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 28 degrees Celsius or so. And that means it's quite warm, which means animals sometimes will come down to have a drink during the middle of the day. It has not, unfortunately, proved to be the case on this particular Monday afternoon. Not a bad job, don't you think? Here I sit on Monday afternoon in the middle of one of the world's most beautiful places looking for animals. I think it's a great thing for me to be doing. We've got the first creature to show you. Is a bird up in that tree there, and that bird is called a red-billed buffalo weaver. Red-billed buffalo weaver. That's their home. It's like a big block of flats, a very untidy block of flats, and little couples of red-billed buffalo weavers live inside. So mums and dads and their little babies live inside that vast squash of spiky sticks. And I'm sure you're glad that when you go to bed at night, you don't have to lie down on spiky sticks like that. Now, one of the most important things that you need when you're out on safari is a good pair of binoculars, because, of course, our eyes are not quite as good as many of the animals out here. And so the binoculars help us to search and scour the landscape for any creatures that might be around the place. And I'm looking for Shadow the leopard as we speak. But while we do that, Taylor, who is out on foot, has found something that looks a little bit like a pony in pajamas.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another fantastic afternoon out here in the wilderness. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me on this very fine sunny day is Rowan, and of course, Herbert, the mighty protector, is our extra pair of eyes and ears. And of course, a big welcome to all the schools that are joining us today. Look at who we've got. Like James said, something in pajamas. They're a little bit on the lazy side today. They've decided that there's no need to get out of their pajamas. I think they've forgotten that it's Monday and not Sunday. Naughty zebra. Now, we are so lucky to be standing so close, and even for me to be speaking so loudly amongst this group of zebra, because normally they run away from us. But I've been practicing and I've been walking around showing myself to these zebra quite some time now, and they've almost accepted me as part of the herd. And the rest of us that walk around here, they're not too bothered by us. You saw that the mare go up to the big stallion and say, "Hello, how are you doing?" And now they're all very happy, aren't they? Look at them, they're even coming a little bit closer to us. So if you've got any questions, remember, you're more than welcome to ask your teachers, and they will send them through to us So if you've got any questions about the zebra or what it's like to walk on safari, you're more than welcome to ask me. But this is not the whole herd. This herd has got quite a few different zebra in it. Deshawn, you're wondering what kind of animals do we have in this area? Well, one of my favorites is the one that we're looking at right over here, which is the zebra. Then we have lots and lots of elephants, which I'm hoping to show you some elephants today. Maybe some cute little baby ones, or maybe the biggest, strongest boy elephant you've ever seen with the greatest tusks. Lots of impala, which is an antelope. So like you get deer, depending whereabouts in the world. We don't have any deer. We've got something called antelope. And hopefully we'll be able to show you some of those a little bit later. There are many animals, leopards, lions. I think James is going to try and find lions this afternoon. We're also going to head far down to the southern boundary, so we'll have to walk quickly to see if we can find and see if we can see footprints of some leopards, and hopefully they've come back and crossed into the property. Aiden, you're wondering why these beautiful creatures behind me have stripes. So the main thing out here in the wilderness, especially when you've got lions and leopards and hyenas and all sorts of other predators lurking about in the bushes, you've got to try and camouflage yourself somehow. Now, if you look at a zebra, you think, how does black and white blend into the vegetation? And it doesn't look like it does a good job, does it? But you see how they like to stand together quite nicely? See that they're always standing together, especially with the young foals, and the rest of the herd has got very, very young foals. It dazzles the predators, so it makes it very difficult to pick out one zebra when they're all standing together. They look like one big blob of stripes, and the lions can get quite confused as to who they're supposed to go after. So that's one of the reasons. But also, I promise you, if you see a zebra standing behind some of the thick trees, and if Tristan and James go down to some drainage lines or some riverbeds, you'll see how dense the vegetation gets there. All the trees and shrubs grow closely together, and a zebra hides very well behind something like that. But aren't they cool? And look at their very long tails like a horse has, and you can see they're swatting them around today. There's lots of bugs out here. Danielle, now you're wondering how many zebras are in a herd. Well, Danielle, it depends on the area that you're in. But over here, typically one herd tends to be maybe between 10 and 15 zebra. Sometimes it can get a little bit bigger. And this particular herd, I think there's 2 families that live together. I can't tell you exactly how many there are, but they're definitely more than the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zebra that are standing just behind me. So they can get quite big. One boy, one stallion with many mares and their babies and their foals. So if you know horses, we call zebras the same thing. The boys are called stallions, the girls are called mares, and the little babies are called foals. There's a squirrel. You might not have been able to hear it, but there was a squirrel going and I'm sure it was sitting at the top of a marula tree looking at us, shouting, saying, hey, 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 there's predators. But that squirrel is not used to us like the zebras are, and that's why the zebras are not shouting at us, because animals look at us, standing tall, with our eyes in front of our heads, and that they think we're predators too. Rosie, now, this is very sad, of course, because I remember I said there's lots of lions and lots of different predators, so carnivores out here, and you were wondering, where do the baby zebras go if they're being attacked? They stay together, so they form not quite a protective circle, but they come close together, they stand right on top of one another in a group, in a bunch, and all the little ones will stand right next to their moms. And you'll see tiny little zebras. Have you ever noticed how a horse, when it's born, it's got very long legs, it looks out of proportion, and that's a defense mechanism. So it's a way that that little one is protecting itself by having the same length of legs as mom. When the lions are staring at the dazzle of zebras, the bunch of zebras together, they go, oh, those just look like adults. It doesn't look like there's any babies there, because almost their legs are almost the same length. Isn't that amazing? So they stay together and they'll run with their moms. And I wouldn't want to mess with a stallion or a mom zebra, because they've got very powerful legs. See those big hindquarters? And they can kick and they can chop and they can bite all the animals that of course go for them. Now Lena, you're wondering, where do they sleep? Out here in the bush, on the grass, under the sun, under a shady tree, or under the moon and the stars. So they don't have any houses to go to. Normally what they'll do is they'll come out at night to an open area like this where there's not too many trees and long grass, so that if a predator, if a lion were to be stalking them at nighttime, they'll be able to see a silhouette moving towards them, because they haven't got very good eyesight at night. The lions and the leopards and the hyenas and the cheetah, not the cheetah, but all the other predators have got fantastic eyesight. Now that's why they prefer to hunt at night. So they will do this. So if they live in an area where there's lots of trees and lots of small shrubs, they run the risk of being attacked a lot easier, because the lions can hide behind the vegetation and the long grass and sneak up to them. But they don't mind us. They've got their heads on the ground. They're swatting the flies, shaking their heads, and every now and then the stallion watches. Bella, you're wondering if zebras are endangered. Not this particular one. This group over here, the plain zebra or the Birchall zebra, they're alright. They're not too bad, and they're very easy to tell the difference between the others. It might be difficult to see from here, but maybe if Tristan or James sees some zebras later, they can zoom right in and have a look at the stripes on the zebra. So on these zebras that we're seeing here, they've got a shadow stripe. So you see the black and the white hair, and then in between on the white you'll see it almost like a brown color, like they haven't had a bath in a very long time. They always look very dirty, and you can see it that way. And I think these guys look the most like horses. They look like ponies, don't you think? If you look very carefully, they're actually very pretty animals. But there's a lot of young ones here. 1, 2, 3 youngsters, juveniles, and then mom, a big female, and then a stallion as well. That's why I think the rest of the group, it must be off into the distance. I did see them all together today, this morning and during the middle of the day too. This is so cool. And we're so comfortable here. Hopefully they'll be more comfortable and walk closer towards us, but I don't think we need to go any closer than this, because they are wild animals, and we don't feed them and we don't touch them. We just view them and then we leave them alone. We take lots of pictures, and then they become very relaxed with us. Marlon, you're wondering why those zebras are swishing their tails around? It's to keep the flies away. The flies can bite really, really sore, and it's very annoying. And you know what it's like if a fly lands on the tip of your nose and you try and get it away, or you swat it with your hand without hurting yourself in the face. Well, that is what a zebra does. And luckily it has got a long tail, so it's able to swish and hit along the side of its body. But also, if you look carefully, you'll see that if something lands on their legs or a part of their body that they can't reach, they twitch their muscles. So as they twitch their muscles like that, the fly will then move away. But they'll shake their heads, they'll stomp their feet, and then something really amazing to see is they'll go in the sand and roll around like crazy things, getting all the dust on them, and that squashes all the parasites and suffocates all the flies. It's a good thing. So I might even have to do that, because the flies are starting to bother me. Either a mud bath or a dust bath. I haven't decided yet. Right, we're going to leave this herd of zebra and we're going to start moving south now and see what else we can find. But there's one more person you've still got to meet, and his name is Tristan. So let's go say good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari. As Taylor mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Herman, who's joining us. Now, a special warm welcome to all the schools that we've got with us. I hope that you guys are going to have a fabulous time joining us and looking at all the wonderful wild things that we have out here in the African bush. So, I am now on the southern boundary, and I am looking for any signs of spotted leopards. I'm looking for the royal family, which is a female with her 2 cubs that we see from time to time in this area. So she is a well-known female, and she's got these 2 beautiful cubs that are about a year old, and so I'm looking for any signs of them. They've been a little bit absent this weekend, so I think it's time that they've finished their party and come back and come rest on Juma's side. So we're just looking for any signs of their footprints to try and see if we can find them. Now, when I was driving along here, there was lots of tracks for baboons, and the baboons are not a leopard's friend at all. When the leopards are around, and especially when they're young and a year old, the baboons pose quite a big threat. So the sign of baboons here is not necessarily a good sign. We don't want to see too many baboon tracks because they can sometimes chase the leopards away. So I'm hoping that if the leopards did come back this way, that the baboons did not bump into them and that they are still here somewhere. Jeremiah, you want to know why the leopards are hiding? Well, the leopards are not hiding. It's just that they are an animal that is quite shy and reclusive. They don't like to be seen too much. They like to spend most of their time in the thick grass and bushes where they can hide away and they can lie and wait in ambush for any prey animals. Also, it's now quite warm, so it's been a hot day today, and that means that the leopards will be feeling a little bit lazy and a little bit hot, and so they're resting. And because the grass is so long, it's very, very difficult for us to see them. And so how we have to find them is by trying to look for their footprints. If they're not any footprints, we'd look into the trees, because on a day like today, especially if there's a nice cool breeze blowing, then you'll find that the leopards sometimes go into the trees and they sleep in the tree to get away from all the insects in the grass. We are very, very lucky in this area though, because most of our leopards are quite relaxed. So they are, when I say relaxed, they are very, very used to the cars. So they don't run away from us like some parts of the world. And the reason why is because in this area we do not harm the leopards in any way, so they've gotten used to the cars as being something that moves around. It doesn't hurt them, it doesn't steal food from them, and so they've gotten used to us, which means that they allow us to get a little glimpse into their secret lives, which is quite incredible. And that's why leopard is my favorite animal. Dishan, the leopards will eat they actually have a very wide variety of food items, so they probably have the biggest array of food out of any of the predators out here. So you'll find a leopard will eat anything from little insects like termites all the way up to big animals like baby giraffe or baby elephants. So they have a very broad spectrum or broad variety of animals that they like to eat, but mostly in this area they're going to be hunting a medium-sized antelope. So something much like a deer, a white-tailed deer, about that size. So that's what they go after mostly. Now, it's always good when you come to a junction in a road where there's two roads that meet to just check and see if there's any sign of tracks for these cats, because they often use a road and it cuts over the road that you're driving on, and you can see what's been passing through there. So I see our baboons are still moving on this road, but they're going in the opposite direction. So Jeremiah, you want to know how the leopards blend into their environment. Well, I'm just going to stop so I can show you a picture of the leopard and I can show you why they blend in. Just give me 2 seconds to get my book and find the page for you. Look at that. There's the cheetah, which we don't want. So I'm just trying to find it for you quickly. Alright. So there is our leopard. It is a very, very, very beautiful cat, and you can see it's got all these little spots on it, and then it's got this very sort of yellowy brown coloration. Now that color helps them to blend in the grass in Africa. We often get grass that's that color, and so when they lie down in the grass, that back part blends in perfectly well. That's coupled with the spots match the shady areas where they like to lie. So they like to spend time in thickets, and when you've got some light that comes through the trees, often you'll get spots of light and spots of shade, and so those spots just help to blend in and make them really difficult to see. And it's quite amazing to actually watch a leopard in this environment. You'll see them, they'll move on the road and then they go off the road, and if they lie down, they disappear. It's really quite incredible to see how well they camouflage. So we're hoping though that if we do find them, that they will be out in the open and we'll be able to see them nice and easy. that would be ideal for us. Now, you may have noticed that every now and then I've been bending over and swatting at my ankles, and that's because we've got naughty flies that are biting me this afternoon. They are landing on my ankles and giving me a little nip, and it is quite painful. They are very, very irritating, and we'll find that they actually irritate a lot of the other animals out here. So you'll see things like elephants and buffalo, and even the lions and the leopards. They land and they bite them and they shake their heads or their ears and try and keep them away. So I'm taking a leaf out of their book and I'm shaking my legs and I'm trying to slap at my legs to try and get the flies away, but it seems to be pretty useless at this stage. Now, I have spotted something that is not a leopard, but it does also have spots. So I'm just going to go forward, or maybe not spots is the right word, but it has a pattern, and it is one of the most beautiful animals we have out here. So I'm just going to go a little bit forward. Herman, can you see there? And look at that, we have a beautiful group of giraffe. So this is a little family grouping together, so there will be females and their young ones. Now this particular one that we're looking at is a big adult fully grown female. Now the reason why I know she's a female is because on top of her head she's got these little small structures that almost look like horns. They are not horns, they're called ossicones, and they are made out of bone, and they go off the head, and on a female they are very, 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 very thin, whereas on a male you have these big thick horns that are a lot bigger and more bulky. Now the reason why the males is so much bigger is because they use them to fight one another. So they'll stand next to each other and they swing their long necks, and those big club-like horns or ossicones, they actually hit into the other giraffe and it hurts a lot. So you find that they can do quite a bit of damage. Now I'm just going to roll forward because we've lost sight of them. It's a bit of a thick area. I'm sure they're going to come down, and where we're going now there's a little water hole, so maybe they're going to go drink from us. Dishan, the animals, you want to know what kind of plants that they eat? It depends on the animal. Each animal is a little bit different. If we take the giraffe, for example, the giraffe are tree eaters, so they eat the leaves off the trees. They won't graze the grass like a zebra would. So Taylor had the zebras, and the zebras are grass eaters, so they only eat grass. They won't eat leaves of the tree, and the giraffe will only eat leaves of the tree and not grass. So they're a little bit different. And then you'll find there's things like the elephants, which eat everything. I don't know if you guys can hear that bird calling as well. So there's a bird chirping away behind me, and that's a woodland kingfisher. Sorry, a woodland kingfisher is making quite a racket here. Ashton, you want to know how long a giraffe's neck is? Well, it depends on the male or the female. The males tend to have slightly longer necks, but in terms of feet, I would imagine that we are looking at about... So I've got to do my maths quickly, which I'm not very good at, by the way. So you must all pay attention in maths, and you'll be better off than I was. But let me think now what it was. In meters, it's about... So we have it at about 2 meters, just over 2 meters. So in feet, would be about 6 to 7 foot. All right. So they are quite long, but the males tend to have slightly longer ones, and that's quite a nice view that we've got there of this female just next to us. You can see she's standing right there, and isn't that beautiful with those clouds in the sky and the giraffe under the tree? So Marlon, that's a very good question. You want to know why would a giraffe have such a long neck? And that's because they want to have this long neck is so that they can find food for themselves. Out here there is a lot of different animals, and so each animal has to find a way of finding a niche for one. So they need to find a certain way that they can survive without too much competition from other animals. And so these giraffe are very, very clever. They've got these long necks, and that means that they can feed right off the tops of the trees where a lot of the other animals can't reach. So the only other animal that can reach as high as a giraffe can is an elephant with its long trunk. So these animals don't have too much competition, and therefore they can find more than enough food all year round to sustain such a big body and keep that big body healthy. Now you notice that this giraffe is chewing even though it's not standing at a tree. So it almost looks like it's chewing some bubble gum. And it is chewing grass, or leaves should I say, sorry, not grass, we've just said it's not grass. And this is an animal that's called a ruminant. So it has a 4-chambered stomach, and that 4-chambered stomach means that it's able to regurgitate food, much like a cow does, and it regurgitates these leaves that it's consumed through the day and is able to then process the nutrients in the leaf much better and extract every little bit of nutrients out of that leaf. Now I'm just going forward a little bit because it's going to open up and it's going to be a lot easier for us. Also, this giraffe is coming down the hill towards us, so I just want to go a little bit forward. I don't know where all the rest of them went. All the rest were here, they were walking. Herman, you can see that? Alright, so Taylor, you're asking what kind of noises giraffes make. Well, giraffes are a funny animal. They do have a voice box, but they normally are very, very quiet. They don't make too much noise. They're not like the elephants that like to trumpet or the lions that like to roar. They generally are a quiet animal and they move around without making too much noise. But if they do make noise, they sometimes make a little bit of noise like a snorting sound. So they'll that kind of sound, which is often when they see a predator, they will sometimes make that sound. So if they see lions, then they make that almost snorting sound. But their vocal range is very, very small, so they actually don't make too many sounds, not like something like an elephant. And look at this, she's walking straight towards us. So Jill, you want to know what the predators are for these giraffe? A giraffe of this size really only has one predator, and that is the lions. So the lions, because they hunt in prides and in groups together, they're able to work together to bring such a large animal down. When they're smaller though, you'll find that they are prone to being attacked by a number of different predators. So as babies, they can be attacked by hyenas, leopard, lions, wild dog, and even coalitions of cheetah, which is not very common, but it has been recorded. So they have a number of predators when they are small, but as they get big and they become fully grown adults, like this beautiful female we see here, then it's only the lions that they have to worry about. And the giraffe that we see in this area of the South Africa and the Kruger National Park are quite lucky, because our lions here don't really hunt giraffe very much. The lions here, when they grow up, they generally learn how to hunt buffalo more than the giraffe. It's what they specialize in, and so it makes it much easier for them to know how to hunt buffalo rather than giraffe, and so they tend to actually not go after the giraffe too much. So our giraffe in this particular section actually have a good time of it. They don't tend to get hunted too much at all. But isn't she graceful? Look at how beautiful she is as she walks. And can you see how she walks with her legs? So you can see how she moves either both right legs or both left legs when she's walking. And that's so that she doesn't kick herself, because her leg is so long. If she walked like any normal animal, she would just keep kicking her front legs. So she moves a little bit differently, both left legs, both right legs. And because she has a very long neck, the neck is able to balance her movement and keep her standing upright. Now, Amalia, they do use the tails indeed for swatting away flies. As we were talking about just now, lots of little flies here that are biting me around the ankles. So the poor giraffe are also going to be bitten by the same flies, calling them biting flies. That's the name for them. And so that tail is swishing around, trying to get rid of all of those flies that are landing on the giraffe and irritating it. It's like me waving my hand. If there's a fly that's trying to land on my face, it's exactly the same thing. Right. So our giraffe is disappearing a little bit into the thicket, so unfortunately we're going to have to leave them there, but wasn't that spectacular? It's always so nice to see the giraffe. They're such beautiful animals and they're so big. Always very, very special to see them. Okay, so we're going to carry on and see if we can find... Oh, there's a beautiful waterbuck that's just run across the road as well. So underneath that big tall tree, it's just a little antelope that's busy moving away there. It's quite difficult to see him. It's very, very camouflaged. But like I said, we are going to carry on looking for the leopards and see if they are anywhere around here. And while we do that, let's go to my good friend Taylor and see how her little walk through the bush is going.
How amazing is that? You've seen two of the animals now with the most beautiful patterns on their coats. First the zebra, and then the tallest animal of them all, of course, the giraffe. And hopefully I'll be able to find you some giraffe footprints. We're going to go and search for some, but I got distracted and I found these very, very pretty red flowers. Look how lovely they are. They're all growing in a nice heap. But these flowers should not be here. They are very naughty. They come from Mexico, and we're in South Africa. It's a far away from home, don't you think? But sometimes things like this tend to happen, where these flowers were brought in many years ago from Mexico, brought all the way to South Africa on the ships, and they brought them here because they thought that they were very, very pretty flowers, and this is the European settlers, and they would make nice to plant in their garden. Of course, it'll be a little bit like home, but they've now taken over these areas, and I don't feel too bad when I start to pick them. Now I'm going to show you a trick, and I hope that I can do it. I've done it once, twice before, but it's very difficult. You have to have the perfect flower. I'm going to try and make you a whistle. Let's see. Now we've got to choose the right one. Who is going to be the perfect flower? Right, let's take this one. So what you're going to do, you can see if you have a look at this flower, this part is all hollow. So it's just air in here. We'll pull the leaves off. Now this is the tricky part, and you've got to be very careful when you're handling a knife. So you must always ask mom and dad for some help. Don't try and do this on your own because you can cut yourself. Right, let's see. You make a small little incision here. Amazing, hey? I can't believe I did that first go. The other day, I think I tried 100 flowers before I eventually got it right. So that is my favorite thing to do, is to make a whistle, and you can annoy mom and dad with it too. That's what I do. I go home and... Very cool, hey? So I think we'll keep that. We'll put that behind my ear and save that for later. Now there's something else down here. Megan has asked me. Megan is directing the show, so she's sitting in a special place called Final Control, where there's computer screens everywhere and all these fancy buttons. I just want to go in there and press all the buttons. That's why I'm not allowed in Final Control. And she just said to me now, she said, what song was that? And I don't know. I think I was trying to do... I don't know what song. No, I don't know. It's a nursery rhyme of some sort, but I've forgotten which one it is. Where is this other thing I'm looking for? Yes. Did it sound like Jingle Bells? That's exactly what I was doing. If it sounded like Jingle Bells, I'm a professional flower player from now on. I'm going to give myself that title. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Look at this tiny little white thing. I'm going to pull it out for you so you can have a close look. Oh, that was the wrong one. That's embarrassing. But have a look at this. Isn't this cool? It's beautiful, hey? Now we see lots and lots of them around here, and if you go looking in long grass or in marshy areas, you'll find something similar. This is called a sedge. Now, they're very important out here in Africa. You might not be able to see it, but it's got very, very sharp edges. And I have a little rhyme to remember the difference between sedges, grasses, and rushes, and it goes, sedges have edges, rushes are round, grasses have nodes, all the way down. It helped me in bush school. But the reason why I've picked this is because it's really, really important to know what sedges are. And this white button sedge has got antibacterial properties to it. So if you take dirty water and you boil it, and afterwards you're still not sure if it's going to help, you can put a whole lot of sedges inside of it, and it should help with cleaning the water. And the Bushmen, what they would do is they would take ostrich eggs, and they'd empty out the ostrich egg, give it a good wash, and that's one of the things they would store water in. They make a tiny little hole, fill it up with water. They need something to act as a cork so the water doesn't come out. So they take lots and lots of sedges, put them in a bunch, wrap them around, and plug that hole. And then it helps keep the water nice and clean, and then they put it underground to keep it nice and cool as well. So another very handy thing to have or to know about when you're in the bush. And it's very important to know these survival techniques and things well to do. Should we carry on? Let's go and see what's around the corner. Oh, okay. We're going to keep searching. I'm hopefully going to find you some praying mantis or caterpillars or something creepy to have a look at. Tristan has got one of my favorite antelope, and this one, if it's a boy, has big spiraled horns.
Well, Taylor, this is one of my favorite antelopes too, so indeed they are very pretty. Now, I'm trying to get a nice view on him. He keeps going in behind the bushes, which is very, very typical for this antelope. Its name is a kudu, and the kudus like to be in thickets, much like the leopards, and so they are often associated or in amongst the trees, and so they like to get behind trees when we see them because they feel a lot more comfortable. But look how beautiful his horns are. You can see he's got these beautiful twisty horns that are coming off his head. Now, this is still a young kudu. Those horns are still going to get bigger. I've actually seen horns that are double that length. So these are still quite small, but isn't he spectacular? Look at those big white stripes on the side of his body as well, and those massive, massive ears. So just now I was saying that they like to spend a lot of time in thickets, and these big ears help with being able to hear predators, because as you can see, when the kudu goes in behind the tree there, it is very, very difficult to see anything behind the trees. So you've got to use your big ears to be able to hear, not see what's going on. So that's why they've got such large ears. Now, our giraffe have not arrived. I thought our giraffe were going to come drink at this waterhole, but they seem to have turned a little bit and gone the other way. So I think what we're going to do is carry on. We're going to leave this water area. There doesn't seem to be any signs of anything else. Now, I thought there might be signs of the leopards, but unfortunately not. But we are going to carry on looking for them and see, maybe we get lucky. We'll check the riverbed along here, and while we do that, let's go across to James, who's got a feathery friend with a big beak.
We had a feathery friend with a big beak. Unfortunately, it has flown away. But over there on the road, there's another feathery friend with not quite so big a beak, but it's actually, I think, a more interesting bird. That's called a hoopoe. And a hoopoe has got what we call a probing bill or beak. And if you watch him carefully, you'll see him sticking his beak into the ground, and he's looking for worms and grubs and little beetle larvae and that sort of thing. And he's got and probably ants and termites as well. He's got a very sensitive beak with nerve endings in the end of it. And that's how he's able to tell what he's pecking at. See that? And he's got a wonderful crest there. I think this is a beautiful bird. It's called an African hoopoe. And it's called a hoopoe because it makes a call that sounds, Brian, like whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. Exactly. That's what a hoopoe sounds like. So here's a word for you to say, kids. Those of you who are 11 will probably already know what this is. Those of you who are 5, listen carefully. Onomatopoeia. Say that a few times. Onomatopoeia. An onomatopoeia is when something is named after what it sounds like. So when a hoopoe is called a hoopoe, it's because it says, Brian? Exactly. Very good. Let us move along. And there are a few animals out here, and you know, many of the birds that are named in the local language of Xitsonga here, they are named onomatopoeically, and I'll try and find you one or two of those. Hayden, you want to know why that bird has stripes on it? Well, you know, it's difficult to say, Hayden, because birds have got all sorts of strange colours that don't make them camouflaged. In fact, their colours often make them more obvious. So often, if the male bird is more brightly coloured than the female, well, then we say it's because that's how he attracts the females. But in this case, the male and female hoopoe look very similar. So why they should have those stripes, I'm not really sure. Perhaps it's the same reason that zebra have stripes, and we think that might, well, there are a whole lot of theories for that, but maybe it makes them slightly more difficult to see when they're in the thick bush. But you know, Hayden, I think there are lots of people who would give you lots of different answers for why an animal like that's got stripes. Most of them would be giving a very big guess, and they wouldn't actually be sure at all. Now I'm looking here because the flowers on the side of the car here often have very exciting things in them. Now I know we're looking for lions and leopards and all sorts of things like that, but what I'm going to do is quickly get out of the car And if the others find something, then Brian will tell me and we'll link to them. These flowers are called Waltheria, which is not very interesting, but they are so often interesting things on the Waltheria plants. And when you're in the wilderness like this, it's not just about the big stuff, of course, it's about the small stuff. Like Taylor was showing you those lovely red flowers, and it's always a good idea to stop and just look on the leaves. Maybe there's a spider, maybe there's a weevil, maybe, and hopefully there is a mantis. And a mantis, of course, is a predatory animal that likes to eat other insects. But on this particular group of Waltheria plants, we seem to be inescapably short of anything other than the Waltheria plant. And there's its funny little flower, which I think is very beautiful. And it's very, what we call, I suppose, nondescript. It's not big and bright like that zinnia you were looking at. I assume you were looking at a zinnia. Very nice.
Wonderful.
Yes. Good. Let us press on. See what else we can find around here. Oops, nearly fell on my face, which I suppose would have been quite funny for some of you. Brian certainly wouldn't have laughed, wouldn't you, Brian? No, you would have been very concerned for my safety. Right, now I was talking about finding things on those plants, and one of the things that likes to live on those Waltheria plants is exactly what Taylor's going to show you now.
We've just seen the same plant that you were looking at with James. It's the Waltheria again. And Tristan this morning was desperately checking all the different Waltheria plants. I think it was this morning or yesterday afternoon, looking for caterpillars on this specific plant. And we managed to find one. And I reckon it's the only one that's left now, because I've checked all the other Waltherias like Tristan and they've all disappeared. But this is the caterpillar, or the larvae, so the baby stage of a butterfly, known as an acria. Now, I'm not sure exactly which acria this caterpillar belongs to, but it is going to double, triple, quadruple in size, because it's just going to eat as much as it can. And then once it's fat enough, it will make a cocoon out of silk, and then it will develop for a few weeks and turn into a butterfly. And then, can you believe this? That butterfly doesn't need to eat anymore. So during the caterpillar stage, they eat enough that it gives them enough fat and resources to carry on. So when you see the butterflies, excuse me, going to sit on flowers and drinking the nectar, that's just for energy. So it's just like having maybe a little piece of fruit to get some natural sugars in you, and then you're good to go again. So it's not actually fattening them up, it's just giving them a little boost of energy. Now that caterpillar, it looks delicious. And do believe me when I say that there are many people in Africa who eat caterpillars. They eat them every single day. Like you would maybe have eggs on toast, or if you would have a cheese and tomato sandwich, people eat them every single day. And they're actually really, really nutritious. So if you were to eat enough caterpillars every single day, you wouldn't have to eat anything else. And I bet some of you are going, ew, gross, that's disgusting. But sometimes when you are out here in Africa, and even in South America and other places, you've got to eat what's around you. Grasshoppers, you can eat the caterpillars, of course. You can eat scorpions and spiders and all crazy things like that. I would prefer not to have to eat any of those things, so we won't eat this one. We'll let this one develop into a butterfly, I think. Now earlier I actually had some giraffe tracks for you. We'll keep looking if we can see some. Now Ryan, you're wondering why that caterpillar is so green. Well, every caterpillar has got a different color to it, and that one doesn't have any warning colors on. So sometimes, and green is actually a normal color for a caterpillar, it helps it blend in. And camouflage, like Tristan was telling you about the leopards, how their rosettes camouflage, so does the green. It makes them blend into the leaf. But sometimes we see caterpillar species that are toxic. And normally if they've got a poison to them, you'll see they've got bright colors, reds and oranges and blacks and all sorts of striking colors. And if you see that on an insect, or even a frog, maybe even a reptile, don't touch it. Don't pick it up, don't put it in your mouth. Those are the ones you don't want to eat, because those bright colors are a warning to birds, to other insects and all sorts of things, to say, I don't taste very nice, I produce a poison, don't eat me. So you can't just go and pick anything up and put it in your mouth and eat it if you're hungry out here, because there are a lot of things, not just the fruits, but also the insects and other animals have lots and lots of toxins to them. They need to try and protect themselves somehow. Now you may see that there are some flies following me. A whole swarm of them. Get away. They're ridiculous and they're trying to bite me. So we're going to find a guarri bush. Let's see if we can spot one here. This isn't a very good area for guarri trees to go, and hopefully we'll find you one. So it's got amazing uses, and one of the best uses is like a zebra's tail as a fly swatter. So we'll see. Herbie, have you found a guarri bush for us? Herbie says nothing just yet. I'm trying to see if there's anything else we can use. I wouldn't want to use a tree with thorns on to swap myself, because I think that'd just be a little bit silly. Let's see. Now there's not very many insects anymore. Not very many insects out at the moment. And hopefully we'll start to see some more again, but you never know, we're going into winter. Now, it was wonderful, of course. Thank you for all the schools for joining us this afternoon. We hope that you learnt a little bit, and I hope next time that you watch us, we'll find a guarri bush and some giraffe tracks so that you can see them. But it's been lovely, and from all of us here at Wild Earth, we hope to see you all soon. We're going to go across to James now and see what he's got in store for you for the rest of the afternoon.
I think that is the first time I've ever not managed to find one mammal for the school children, and so I've decided to contemplate the ineptitude of my existence by looking up the clouds as they move gently in from the northwest. A couple of grass stalks above my head, and where I'm pointing now, can you see, Brian?
Okay.
A robber fly.
Oh, wonderful.
Sitting on the culm of Eurocloa mozambicense, or the bushveld signal grass. Do you see it?
I do.
How wonderful. I must confess at the same time that we did have a little bit of a rough time with the car. We lost signal. That's not to say that I had a mammal while we didn't have signal. We also lost the clutch for some time. We also didn't have a mammal while we had that problem. So, no, it was simply my ineptitude that failed to find any form of mammal for the children. The shame. Oh, the shame. It is quite astonishing, though, how tall the grass has become. Now, this is a different discussion, so it's not an excuse for why I didn't find anything, but it really is amazing. And when the wind blows gently through the culms, I must say I do feel a sense of fresh joy and peace. Don't you, Brian? I do. Yes. Okay, our plan from now is to go down towards Treehouse Dam, which is not far from here. And my original plan was to see if we couldn't find the Nkahuma Pride, which I believe was found on Simbambalai, not Simbambalai, because we're not allowed to drive there, onto Arathusa, on the Marikeni drainage line where we lost signal, but we also didn't find the lions there. And there were lots of elephant tracks, so perhaps the elephants chased them off. All right, Brian, are you ready?
I'm ready.
No good. Very nice gobble there that you did. I shall miss the gobble. Now, of course, now I'll be savaged by ticks from lying in the grass, but it's still worth doing. Remember, everybody, hashtag safariLIVE is how you ask questions, and it would be good to hear from you during the course of the afternoon. Please. That is hashtag safariLIVE. Ask us anything, tell us anything you want, well, within reason. I mean, there's some things we don't want to know about you. Here is a very nice plant. Oops, I just meant to... There, you see, Brian. See how nice this plant is? It's called Vernonia. Vernonia. Very nice. Unfortunately, I seem to have removed the entire plant from the ground by mistake, which I didn't want to do, and so I'm going to replant it. I won't be long, Brian. Let's hope it continues to grow and doesn't die. Sorry about that, Mr. Plant. I really did rather not mean to do that. Let's quickly get out of here before someone notices. It's Vernonia, and they grow up obviously very quickly after the rain, and normally on the seep line areas where we are now. So there's lots and lots of water in the subsurface layer around where we are. Good. I must just say we did find one mammal, but it was rejected out of hand by Megan, who's directing today. It was rejected because Tristan had a kudu, and I said to Megan, is a kudu better than an impala? To which she replied, affirmative. So I will probably have to have a word with her when we get home. I might eat her supper so she doesn't have any. It is a lovely afternoon. It was supposed to be 28 degrees or 82 or 3 when we started. I'd say it's probably dropped down to about 26 now, which is about 78 odd. It's so pleasant. The light is soft. The grass is green. The trees are verdantly full of leaves. And there are no mammals anywhere I look. However, there is a hunting bird. Do you see it? It's gone. It was a European roller. Let's see if we can find what it was trying to catch. Hello, Debbie. An interesting question, and I wonder if it wasn't precipitated by the question from one of those kids about why the bird, the hoopoe, had stripes. You say, do flies bother birds as much as they do the mammals? I don't think that they do, and why wouldn't they? I suppose birds move a bit more than mammals do. You know, they tend to be less sedentary. I suspect they're much quicker and able to grab them out of the air and eat them. A lot of birds are. And I think also that the bird's feathers provide a covering that doesn't sweat, so it doesn't produce anything that the flies could eat, and maybe the oils that the birds put on their feathers also preclude flies. Well, while we think about these things, perhaps you can ask the bird that you're about to see now.
Indeed, this is one of my favorite birds, and it is very, very pretty. It's an African fish eagle, and they are incredibly beautiful. And I don't think there's any call in Africa that can sort of take you to Africa and make you feel as though you're in Africa than the call of a fish eagle. It's that beautiful call that they have. And this one is at Chitwa Dam, so it's perfectly perched in this dead tree, watching over the dam at the moment, and it's probably looking for any signs of catfish. Now, Brent had those catfish a few days ago, or must be over a week now, that were all spilling out of the dam when it was overflowing after all the rains. And there are some areas that are flooded still, that are starting to recede a little bit, and maybe there's still some catfish that are being trapped in that this fish eagle can come down and swoop and get. But now that sun is coming out, look how beautiful that bird is. Oh, a little ruffle of the feathers. You can see the browns and the blacks on the trailing edge of the wing, and then that very contrasted white head with that bright yellow beak and yellow feathers. They really are quite spectacular. Now, as the name suggests, most of what they eat is going to be fish. Kyle, you want to know my favorite bird of prey in the park? I would say that my favorite here is probably the crowned eagle. Now, the crowned eagle, which I shall show you shortly, is a beautiful eagle. It is big, powerful, with massive talons, and it flies around hunting small mammals. So it will go after things like monkeys and okay, so I'm just looking for my book. Just give me 2 seconds while I try and find it. I've got a whole bunch of stuff here, so I'm trying to find where I actually put it. Not in there. Let's see if I can find a picture in this one then. I don't know where I put my bird book. I was looking at it the other day, so sometimes in the chaos of researching things that we forget our books behind. So I'm just trying to see if I can find a picture of one for you. Otherwise, I do have one on my phone, so let's actually just use that. But a crowned eagle is the most spectacular bird. It has beautiful markings, so let's just pull that up. Where are you? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to get the photo up, but here you can see it is a beautiful bird that has white with these barred tail and then rusty red underwings. So it is a very, very, very pretty bird. I'm going to go back to that one. So there's what it looks like, and you can see, look at the size of the talons of this bird. So it will fly down and, like I was saying, capture a small mammal. So it goes after little duikers and monkeys a lot of the time, and it comes down with those talons, and it uses those big talons to get into the spine or into the skull of the animal and crush it. So really, really powerful, and we don't unfortunately see too many of them. This area is not a great habitat for crowned eagles. It needs to be a little bit more densely wooded, and so you find them on the riverbed systems, but not really out in the open areas that we're in now. But the view of this dam now that the light has come out is absolutely spectacular. There's these greens and blues, and it's just summery, and it feels absolutely incredible. So while we take in this unbelievable view of the African landscape, let's go across to James, who's got probably not the prettiest animal that we have out here, but certainly an entertaining one.
I don't think that's fair. I think this is a very pretty, well, pretty maybe not, but attractive animal, I think. A wildebeest or gnu. And this one in amongst the clearings here beneath the great Nkuhuma tree. Our first mammal of the day, Brian. A wildebeest bull. Now I wonder why people say they're not very good looking. Perhaps it is the flat nose. This one, of course, seems to have some sort of growth on its nose. I wonder if that isn't something perhaps from a botfly. He's now marking his territory with his pedal glands. Oh, I think he's going to give us a bit of a show. That's wonderful. Look at him giving us a show there, Brian. It wasn't a long show, was it?
Well, it was a good show, nevertheless.
It was a great show, but not very long.
Oh, no.
Yes, look at us and enjoy. Yes, the flat nose. What else, Brian? What else do you think makes people people say they're ugly?
Small horns.
I suppose the horns don't look quite big enough, do they?
No.
But they do have wonderful musculature. This one's quite stripy. I think it's, you know what I think it is? It's the fact that the hind quarters are lower than the forequarters. I think that gives them a slightly odd look. You think that's what it is, my chum? Well, never mind. We think you're quite attractive. Let's move forward and have another look at him, just so that we might appreciate his beauty more fully. Hello. I must learn the song I'm a Gnu. I'm a Gnu. How do you do? And then it goes all sorts of other great words, most of which I've forgotten. Such a gorgeous afternoon here. Birds calling, not very loudly. and he's just grazing along on the short grass. You can see he's put his head in amongst the culms, in amongst the long grass. And the point of that, of course, is that he eats short grass. He doesn't like to eat the very long stuff. In fact, no animals like to eat the culms with the seeds on them. They want the leaves down below. We're going to continue towards Treehouse Dam. I believe Taylor has something fascinating to show you.
We've picked up a butterfly. It is still a little bit alive, but it's sadly on its way out. Although I say sadly, and I don't feel too bad, because a butterfly's life cycle is unfortunately not very long. Their sole purpose is to go from a caterpillar, pupate, then develop into a beautiful butterfly, mate, and lay its eggs, and a few weeks later they normally die. And you can see if I turn it slowly, this is an African vagrant, and look how tattered it is. It's almost gone whitish yellow now. It will probably die in the next few hours. But what I thought was really amazing was just to see its beautiful mouth part. This is something we don't actually get to have a look at. Look how its proboscis is all curled up. Now they've got a sucking mouth part which they'll use to suck nectar up, and various insects have different types of mouth parts, but I think a butterfly and the assassin bugs, a piercing and sucking mouth part, have probably got the most beautiful. I even want to have another look at it, but it is a little bit alive. And then if you look at its eyes, look at all those lenses that you can see, those individual lenses inside its eye. It's actually really, really amazing. And this would make a tasty snack, a very small tasty snack for a bird of some sort, but I think that we shall put it down. Rest in peace, butterfly. May a hornbill eat you and benefit from the nutrition. Now I've got a quiz. Are you ready? Who does this belong to? Or who did it belong to? This beautiful feather. It's quite large. I'll put my hand up so you have a sort of a scale. You can see the blackish brown color, and then of course that very white pattern. So hashtag safariLIVE with your answers if you think that you know which bird this feather belongs to. I had to think about that one for a second, and then I just heard something moving through the bushes, but I didn't hear Herbie panic. So I don't know if it was maybe some impala rustling through the grass, or Herbie pretending to be an elephant and pulling a log off of the road. Let's go up and find out. And that's what happens when you're walking in the bush, is that your senses are so in tune that you hear one small thing and you've literally just got to stop what you're doing and that you focus on everything from where that sound is. Because it is so thick, a buffalo could come launching out of the bushes at any given moment. So you've got to be careful. But like I said, if you can let me know what you think this feather is, hashtag safariLIVE, and we'll get some answers hopefully shortly. I'll keep it safely in my ponytail. It can just live there for now. Ooh. Pokemon guy, this is very good. Thank you guys for being so quick with your answers as well. So Pokemon guy, you've said that you think it's from a magpie shrike. Very good guess, because you're almost there. You've got the black plumage and the bits of white. That feather's a little bit too big. That's a little bit too big for a magpie shrike. Now James Richard, you've said African hoopoo, another good guess. It's got the same type of patterning. Think bigger. African hoopoo also about half the size of that feather. This feather's from the wing. This is definitely from the wings, so think. Ooh. Carl, you've guessed a brown snake eagle. That's a good guess, a little bit too big now. So we're looking for sort of a medium-sized bird. They're very common. You see them around quite a bit. Think of all the birds that have been doing a lot of dust bathing at the moment. Remember, when they do dust bath, they rustle their feathers around, getting the sand everywhere and all the dust so that they can suffocate the parasites. But they can also lose a couple of feathers by doing that. Old ones that aren't supposed to be there anymore and that have done their time. And that's exactly, this one is very, very worn. It's actually quite damaged towards the base, so it wouldn't be a very good feather to have on you if you need to fly. So keep those guesses coming through. Keep going, and you're not just limited to one guess. Bree, you've guessed a red-crested coron. We're getting there. A little bit smaller. It's one of my favorite birds. You get quite a few different species of them, so now I have to give you clues. But you guys are getting better and better. That's really quite nice. So keep on guessing. And while you're guessing, have a look down here. Look at all this. This is what was making all that noise, as it was Herbie moving a silver cluster leaf tree that elephants had kindly deposited across the road. So he was just doing his bit in conservation and moving it off. Ellie, you said a woodpecker. Again, almost. Again, you guys are getting the right color combos, which is good, but a little bit too small. Still, we're looking for a medium-sized bird. So something bigger than a turtle dove. Nina, you biscuit. You've guessed correctly. Well done to you. You've said a hornbill. Now, you've got the species right, so I'll tell you which one I think it's from. I think because of the size of the feather, it is from a yellow-billed hornbill. This lovely feather. So Nina, fantastic, and well done to everybody else for guessing too. It was a tricky one, and the reason why we sort of knew it was a hornbill, just from the size, the color patterns on the back of a hornbill's back, and maybe if you've got a picture, a nice screenshot of a hornbill, you can share it with everybody and show them exactly where it's come from. But we also saw the track where it was dust bathing. It was sitting right next to it, so that helped us in identifying this feather. So not only can you use tracks and what's around it help you identify the track of an animal, that's why we call it track and sign, is because this was another indication of that bird. And like I said, they're dust bathing like crazy at the moment. We may even see some. Goodness gracious, these elephants have been hard at work. Now this doesn't look particularly new. I don't know when I last drove Shibamu either. We'll just kick it off the road nicely. But they've been munching on the silver cluster leaves. I don't know, they wouldn't be eating the leaves. They're probably getting a bit of the bark. We'll just pick up this one as well and chuck it off the road so it doesn't cause too many obstructions. Now Herbie's up ahead of us, and he has to be because there's some pans coming up. And obviously we're coming around these corners and it's very thick. And like I said, there could just be a buffalo 2 meters away from us and we wouldn't even know. So he's gone to check down there to make sure that everything is nice and safe. Deborah, you're wondering how large can a bird's feather get? Well, Deborah, that depends on a number of different things. The size of the bird, and then of course, breeding. Do they get breeding feathers? For instance, if you look at a pin-tailed wider, during the breeding season, they get the long tail feathers. So their tail feathers can be about that long, almost the length of a ruler. But it just depends on the type of bird. Look at a peacock's feathers, for example. My goodness, they must be 4 or 5 feet long when they extend them out in the open. So it just is specific to each bird and how big they get, and is it a breeding feather, or, you know, a number of different types of things. So yeah, I'm trying to think what's the largest feather we'll get is probably from the ostrich, I would have to say, seeing as though that is the largest bird species that we have here. They've got very, very, very long feathers. Oh, come and look at this big tick. Look at this. It's a big bond tick. Just sitting, waiting for a buffalo. And there's a go-away bird shouting at us. Come here! Come here! Let me see if I shout back at it if it shouts at me. Don't be rude, we're just looking at a tick here. Don't mind that. But these are ones that you don't want to get on your body. That would be very painful and very easy to identify that it's a bond tick because of the coloration. Very, very brightly colored and nice patterns on their back. Well, as nice of a pattern as a tick can have on it. But I think they must be the prettiest looking ticks. And we get many, many, many different types of species at all. Lovely. I hope it doesn't end up on us. We've got to keep checking ourselves for ticks, or especially the pepper ticks. I actually think I can see one. Nope, it's a freckle. That's the problem with me. I'm not sure if they're pepper ticks or freckles at times. Let's see what else is around here. I can't believe we found that caterpillar on the Weltheria, because Tristan did a very, very good job of checking them all, and there really isn't much as a... What else is around here? Nope. Flower mantids are all gone, which is very sad because they were beautiful. Where they've gone, I'm not even certain. But there's still a couple of caterpillars and things that are on some of these plants. You can definitely see where the leaves have been munched on. We're just going to keep searching as we walk, really. Checking the leaves, having a look, seeing if there's anything on here. But nothing very obvious at the moment. You know what is nice, and we'll try and find, is I've seen a lot of cocoons, empty cocoons on the grasses from the various types of caterpillars. So we'll look for some of those. My goodness, this is a Weltheria forest over here. Look at all of them growing about. Surely we must get lucky here if we look hard enough. I'm checking. Oh, a shield bug. There we go. Here's something to look at. Just on the very tippy top of that Weltheria is a shield bug. And just point it out for Rowan. Oh, it's run away now. Come here. Oh no, he's coming back up again. There he is. Tiny little guy. Very, very, very small. And I don't know what he's doing up top there. Just having a little scout about. I'm not sure if the shield bugs actually feed on Weltherias. Oh, hang on, we've got a grass. Oh, never mind, we had a grasshopper. It's now disappeared. But that's really it that's out here. It's just this little shield bug. I can't see anything else, which is a pity. And that go-away bird is now following us and shouting at us. Right, let's carry on. Let's see what else we can find. Lots of grasshoppers around, but these ones are so quick. Christine, you're wondering if the ticks that we've been seeing carry diseases. Some of them do. For instance, those little red-brown ticks that we get, which are the most common ones, the females are the big grey ones that you often see on your pets that swell up. Now, they carry tick bite fever, which we call it in South Africa, or it can cause biliary, like the born tick in animals. And so yes, they can. However, they're not quite life-threatening. Tick bite fever, if you get bitten, you can pretty much sort it out very quickly. I've had it a couple of times. It's not great. You get a horrible migraine, you feel exhausted, you've just got no energy, that type of thing, and your body aches a little bit. And if you go to the doctor, they can do a blood test, but typically out here in the bush, we'll just tell them, listen, I have a tick bite, here's my tick bite. It's red, it's got a little black center to it, which is typically what happens. And they go, okay, great. Give you the medicine out here, and then within a few hours, you normally feel as good as gold, or the next day you feel all right. So nothing too threatening out here, and then the animals become quite resilient to something like biliary, which is the animal equivalent of tick bite fever. But biliary it affects their liver quite badly, and I'll never forget with my horses and with our dogs living out on small holdings, so sort of mini farms, we always used to have something called liver tonic. I've forgotten what exactly it is. I think it's a lot of vitamin B though, and something else. And often when the animals would get it, you used to give that as a supplement to help their body sort of fight it off naturally. So that was quite nice. We always had lots and lots of stock of this liver tonic in our rooms, and it smelled very much like iron, and it had a really, really weird smell to it. It wasn't great. Right. See if there's anything else here. Nope, just the drying up mud wallow and lots of old elephant dung. Crusty on the outside, but still moist on the inside, so the animals will be very, very happy with this. There's a couple of tiny little beetles, but they're now running desperately, trying to hide away, because I think that they think that I'm going to eat them. Little do they know, I don't enjoy beetles very much. Better turn it back over. Sorry, beetles, for disturbing your little feast, your buffet over there. We're going to keep searching. We're approaching the boundary now. We're going to keep checking for leopard tracks or any signs of elephants. I'm not sure what Tristan's up to, but let's jump back aboard onto his vehicle, and I'm sure he'll tell you what he's going to do next. Nope, you're not going anywhere. You are all stuck with me. So we'll carry on. Along we go. Look at this. How cool is this? Now, we've been seeing a lot of elephant evidence. We saw the silver cluster leaves on the ground. There are a couple of scuff marks from the elephants. We just saw the dung. And look at all this grass up top here. Look what happened. You see that? Now, that grass doesn't grow like this. So you can see that this is an elephant that's come through, wrapped its trunk around, pulled it up, maybe got distracted somehow, and then decided, and I'm going to drop it to just do this, where it is now happily sitting on the top of the other grass. So right, it seems as though James is not fighting too many gremlins. The
Bottom. It's not big enough to be a steppe eagle. It's a little bit bigger, I think, than a Wahlberg's, but it doesn't have the Wahlberg's crest. The stream has gone offline, and so there is no real need for me to continue identifying this bird.
No.
No. Give us a song, Brian. Give us a song. Right, sorry about that, everybody. Not sure what happened. Not sure anybody will ever know exactly what happened there, but such are the vagaries of live broadcasting from the middle of the African wilderness. That is a lesser spotted eagle. Now, I don't know how far along my identification road we got, but let me just go again from the beginning. I don't think it's a Wahlberg's. It's about the right size, probably slightly bigger, but it doesn't have the crest. It's not a tawny eagle because it's much too neat, and it doesn't have the variable coloration on the back and the wings. I don't think it's a steppe eagle because I don't think it's big enough. And because it's got sort of stovepipe legs, in other words, the feathers extend down to the feet but are tapered towards the end like a hipster in skinny jeans from Cape Town, I'm going to say that I think that that is a lesser spotted eagle. Are you a lesser spotted eagle? Ah, thank you. And those other birds are trying to mob it because any kind of predatory bird, even if it poses them no danger whatsoever, is going to want to be rid of a meat-eating villain, if you like, in its territory. I'm just going to check for some pictures of the lesser spotted eagle. I'm really not sure what else it could be. Right, apparently the lesser spotted eagle it is, and while we observe it for a little bit longer, we're going to head across to Tristan, who has got a suicidal bird.
So we're going to continue with our birding and our challenge with Taylor. So Taylor this morning was out and about, and she was hammering the birds this morning. She got lots of them, and I think I found the same birds that she found this morning. I have an adult red-crested Koran with 2 little chicks that are running around. I suppose they're not little anymore, they're quite big now. They're what you would term a juvenile. But it's quite interesting because these Korans only lay 2 eggs, so the fact that she's managed to raise both is testament to her good mothering skills and her ability to be able to keep them alive. Now, you can see how their camouflage works. Once they go into that thicket, it's impossible to see them. Right, so we are all the way on Cheetah Plains. We are busy looking around to see if there is anything. I know Taylor was talking about ostriches earlier, so I think I'm going to try and see if I can find any sign of an ostrich. Sorry, little one. So one of the little chicks is back on the road, just running along. I don't want to separate it too much from its mom. Come on. So the reason why they're using the road like this is because it's much easier to see what's going on. You can imagine in long grass like this, they can be strolling along and walk straight into a predator like a leopard or a caracal or serval. And so that's why they prefer the road where they can actually see if there's any sign. But look at the camouflage on this little bird as it tucks itself in here. So you can just see its head in there. Let's just to the top a little bit, up. There we go. Straight in there. So it's just as busy disappearing through the grass there. It's amazing, the camouflage. And I think it's going to go and reunite with mom. That's a nice surprise. Like I say, not every day you get to see mom with her little babies. And as I was saying, I'm going to try and see if I can find an ostrich. I think if we're going to find them anywhere, Cheetah Plains is the place to go. Otherwise, any signs of the two cheetah brothers, or Quarantine, Kuchava, any of those spotted cats that hang around this side. Now, unfortunately, Karula and the cubs are on an impala kill south of our boundary, so they're on Little Gowrie with the impala, so it's going to be only a day or two till they come back. And the Birmingham males that David was for this morning and that they're quite far away, so no signs of them either, which is not ideal, but we shall persevere and see if we can find any signs of something on Cheetah Plains. I don't think anyone's even been down here this afternoon. I did speak to one of the Cheetah Plains guys and they said nobody had checked the open area, so maybe our perseverance and our determination will bring us luck and we will find what we're looking for. The nice thing though is that it is an absolutely spectacular afternoon. The afternoon light is beautiful. Cheetah Plains is green. Right, so we're going to go on towards Cheetah Plains and see what we can find on the open area, and while we do that we're going to go through a little bad signal area, so let's go across to James and see what he's busy with.
Ooh, I'm busy with the identification of another raptor. Do you see them, Brian? What do you think they are? Do you? Good heavens. What? Amur falcons, that's exactly what they are. Now, the one on the left-hand side I believe to be a male, and the spotty one on the right is a female. And I think there have been distinctly few Amur falcons this year. And normally, or they can occur in massive flocks. And I remember the year my brother got married, which was, when was it? The year 2011 in the early parts of the year, and that was down in Natal. I'm not going to tell you all about the wedding, but I'm going to tell you that there's a nesting site there in a place called Heimville in some exotic, I think they're pine trees, and there were literally thousands of these birds flying in to roost there for the night, and that was around about this time of year. But here, not quite so many. Hello, Matt. You're wondering about the danger posed by birds and what the most dangerous bird in South Africa is. Well, Matt, you're 10 years old, so I suppose the most dangerous bird in South Africa would be the biggest primate-eating bird. And I know Tristan earlier was talking about the crowned eagle. And a crowned eagle is a monkey eater. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 second that you're a monkey, although your mother and father probably call you a monkey from time to time, if you're climbing a tree perhaps. And what they do is they will grab a monkey by the head and they crush the skull. And I suppose if you're 10 years old, no, you're still too big, you wouldn't be in danger from a crowned eagle out here. But I guess that would be the most dangerous bird if there is such a thing. Otherwise, you know, birds really aren't very dangerous at all. They're generally fairly scared of us. They stay away from us. Brian, have you ever been hurt by... Oh, no, I'm talking rubbish, of course. That, for a very small child, would be the most dangerous bird. But I suspect the bird that does the most injury to people, of course, is the world's biggest bird, and that is the ostrich. And the ostrich can be quite nasty. They can be quite territorial. The males, especially if they're in the process of trying to keep a territory and mate with females, they can be territorial, and then they'll chase you, and they're very fast, and they can do some serious damage. And you know, Matt, if you're ever chased by an ostrich, you won't be able to run away from it because they're very fast. You either have to climb a tree very quickly, otherwise you have to lie on the ground. And what they try and do, and this is quite a nasty thing to say, but that's what they try and do, is they kick forward, and they've got nasty claws on the front of their feet, and they can, if they hook it into the top of you, they can actually rip your stomach open, which is what you don't want. But if you lie down flat, although they'll stomp on you and it'll hurt a lot, it won't do too much damage. So if you're ever chased by an ostrich, what you have to do is lie down flat and hope eventually that the ostrich goes away. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. The number of people killed by ostriches is very, very small. Marco, you're wondering about the size of an Amur falcon flock, how big they can be. Like I say, I've seen a flock of at least 3,000 or 4,000, so they can be enormous. I don't know how much bigger than that they can get. That's about the biggest that I've seen. And interestingly, you know, you think of a raptor as being a bird that catches things, you know, down on the ground. They're termite eaters and insect eaters largely, and they catch termites and insects in the air with their feet, and they do an amazing thing where they lift their legs forward, put the termite into their mouths, and then keep flying. It's an amazing thing to watch. Right, we're heading towards Treehouse Dam in the hopes that there's something that's come down to have a drink. Brian, has anything come to have a drink? No. No. Not a sausage. And Tanis, you're wondering why we're talking about birds, what the biggest owl is that we get here. The biggest owl that we get here is the Verreaux's eagle owl, which is not particularly descriptive, but of course it used to be known as the giant eagle owl, and it was much easier to remember that as the biggest bird that we get out here. I'll show you a picture once we're on the top of the dam wall here, and I'll show you how big it is as well. Tracks of hyenas. I suppose I could always go back to the hyena then. We might try that, Brian. Right, let me show you a picture of a giant eagle owl. That's rather pretty, isn't it, Brian? I must say this dam is infinitely improved by having some water in it. And of course, I don't know, there's something about water that makes people want to come and sit by it and to quaff the tipple of their choice. There's the giant eagle owl standing at roughly 2 feet, 60 to 65 centimeters. That's him there. And we do get them here. They've got very sad pink eyelids, don't they, Brian? Looks very mournful, I must say. And of course, zygodactyl claws, 2 facing front, 2 facing back. Phew, did you see the fluff of dust there, Brian? It's because I'm so old. All my books have got dust on them. Hello, Reese. What a nice question from you. Sorry, I saw a really nice looking kingfisher there, and the sun just got in my way. I'll get to your question now. It's on the top. It's gone into that dead tree, Brian. If you can just scan the right-hand side of it. I mean, it's going to be pointless in this light, isn't it? I think it was probably a woodland kingfisher. Reese, while we look there, I just thought it might be a different kind of a kingfisher, but I don't think it was. You say, are there any birds that hunt in packs? There are no birds that collectively hunt like a lion, pride, or a wolf pack would, that I know of. I don't think. Just thinking carefully. But there are certainly a group of birds, or a species of bird called the African hawk eagle, which will hunt as a couple. So they hunt as a pair, and they take out guinea fowl and francolins and that sort of thing, with the female flying low, or one of them flying low through the bushes, and while everything's watching out for that one, the other one comes in from the top or the other way around. So that's the African hawk eagle. I can't think of any raptor otherwise that hunts anything other than individually. No, I'm going to say no, Reese. Now let's head us towards Twin Dams. See if we can't find evidence of some buffalo down there, perhaps. Maybe the buffalo that we saw on foot yesterday. We had a lovely time yesterday on foot trying to stalk these buffalo. And it was with Herman, who was on his very first walk, of course. And so it was really exciting. We didn't get close, but we managed to get a nice view of them. See if we can't find them again. But I've got to tell you, if an elephant was to lie down in this grass, it would disappear. How are we supposed to find leopards in these conditions? Apparently, I'm told that Karula has got a kill down to the south. So in Little Gowrie, so she's not going to be back for a little while, unfortunately. Oh, and I did have a look around Red Dam for shadow. That's where Tristan had her tracks going yesterday. I'm afraid I picked up 2 tracks, then our clutch went and we lost signal, so I gave up trying to look there, and we came back to Djuma. Now, while we're here, in this area, there's some wild dogs on Biffle's Hook. So we'll just keep an eye, listen quickly. Now, there were some birds over here, the smallest owl that we've got, and while I try and see if they're here, apparently Taylor's got something great to show you.
Right. Well, great. At the moment, I'm just holding a piece of grass in my hand, which I'm fiddling with. We've jumped onto Gowrie Main because this road is beautiful. It's been graded quite recently, so it's nice and smooth. Actually, I think the tractors were working on it today, or a big grader came through and spread out all the sand. You can see these lovely big tired treads, much larger than our vehicles, of course. And they've smoothed the surface quite nicely, just spreading out the sand. But the reason why we popped onto Gowrie Main is not a road that we often walk on, but it's a road that the leopards like to use to cross in and out of our traverse, as most of you will know. So we got some reports that Karula has made a kill just south of our boundary in Little Gowrie. Now, I don't know where their closest water source is, but we have got, oh cool, we have got lots and lots of water on our side. There's a big giraffe walking down the middle of the road, walking down Gowrie Main. It might be a bit far for you to see, but we'll just try and have a very quick look. And then, well, now you've guessed what our next approach is going to be, is to try and see if we can sneak up to that giraffe. I can't even tell you which way he's walking, he's so far away. He looks like he's walking now to the left. So he's going towards Twin Dams. So we'll probably head that way. We're actually quite lucky. We might get a good opportunity to be able to sneak up to him, because his attention is now drawn to a vehicle that's approaching him. But we've got lots and lots of cover, lots of trees. There isn't much wind, so we'll have to be very quiet when we get a bit closer, but we will eventually try and sneak up on him. But it might take us quite some time. It'll probably take us about 10 minutes or so before we get anywhere near there, especially because there's a vehicle that are now taking pictures of that beautiful big giraffe. We don't want to bother them and ruin their sighting, because you know how giraffe act to us on foot. Most of the time, they're not really our friends. Herbie, should we go back onto the fire break? And we're going to try and sneak up to the giraffe. I think let's do that. Actually, there's another one. There's a babe, oh, maybe it's a female. Like I said, it's far away. It must be about 800 meters away from us, that giraffe. So I can't even see if it's a male or a female. You'll have to help me out until I get closer. But there's definitely a little one charging after it. It looks very small, looks like less than 6 months old. So it's, oh no. Watch out, Rowan. Don't walk into this. Whew, that's spiky. We'll go around there. So I take it back. It's most likely a female with her baby, as that little one came charging out of the bushes. But let's jump off of the main road. We've got to wade through all this long grass. Let's find a section to go through. Goodness gracious, and you get lost in here, it's so deep. And this is where you've got to be careful as well, because as you're walking, and it's tough, because you're trying to look with your eyes and scan around yourself to make sure that there's nothing in front of you. but also you gotta watch where you put your feet so that you don't step on a snake or something like that. So I will lead a pathway here, and I shall, well, risk my life for everyone. Let's just go through here quickly. And there could be a puff adder, there could be anything curled up on here. So it's not just the big animals that we're concerned about, it's also the smaller things that can cause you harm. Though the snakes are pretty good, they feel through vibrations, and most of them will move off and not want to be stood on, except the puff adder. The puff adder tending to be lazy by nature. Let's just check here, because this is not, it'll be a good hiding spot. Stand on the log. Let me hold this for you. Come on through. Please, after you, sir. You, sir. There we go. Right, there we go. We made it. We didn't stumble across the puff adder, so that's good news. Costa, you're wondering if there are any big snakes here. Many, but we don't actually see snakes very often. I saw my first snake, was it yesterday morning, Herbie? Yesterday we saw a spotted bush snake, which is just a constrictor. They don't get very big. We've got rock pythons, which can get over 3 meters in length. We have got black mambas, one of the most deadliest snakes in the world. We've got Mozambique spitting cobras, and a number of different snakes that can get to quite a length. But sadly, we don't see them very often. But if you have a look over here, this was a mildred. This was indeed a mildred the millipede, who is no longer with us anymore, and is now being eaten by ants. So nothing goes to waste in the bush. With the big animals, we have the vultures and the hyenas and the jackals and things, and all the other raptors taking care and getting rid of carcasses for us. And something as small as an insect, well, you've got other insects looking after it. And those ants will completely devour that millipede, that mildred, and take it back to their home. And there are lots of them. Look where they're living. So luckily, these ants actually don't have to travel too far. You see the little holes in the ground, all the fresh loose soil. So very, very convenient for these ants. Cool. And there were lots of elephants walking down this road again. Yeah. Just seeing all the pathways that they've been using. These tracks don't actually look too old. And so maybe we bump into them. I haven't heard any elephants just yet. But before Tristan's animal flies away, we better go take a look.
So we're right up in the northeastern part of Cheetah Plains, around Buffalo Pan, and we've got a beautiful Wahlberg's eagle that is just taking up a bit of the light. Now, these eagles are almost going to be leaving. It's not going to be much longer until they have gone. Just want to check something quickly though. It looks like a Wahlberg's. Just his crest is down at the moment, but I'm sure it is one. It's got that very long rectangular tail. And just surveying the beautiful landscape, it's got a perfect view for a pretty sunset, I can tell you that much. Up there, it must be spectacular looking over the plains that roll out to our south here. So I was just looking for any signs of the cheetah up near the north here, or any signs of leopard, but nothing that I can see. Right. So let's carry on and see what else we can find. I'm sad for Taylor. One of her mildreds has been consumed and eaten. It's not ideal. But luckily there are a fair number of mildreds out there, so I think it will be fine. The general population will still be pretty strong. Now don't poop on my head, Wahlberg's eagle. That's it. Well done. Safely negotiated the driving under, and I'm quite surprised it stayed perched on its branch. It hasn't actually moved, which is quite strange. Often you'll find that they will fly off once you approach underneath them. I'm just looking around at all the big fallen over trees that the cheetah brothers like to spend time marking on. There's a big fallen over tree just behind me there, and another one just to my left that they like to utilize for marking territory. So it's always good just to check on top of those. Sometimes that's where they are busy hiding or surveying their landscape. But I don't see any sign of them But isn't it spectacular out here at the moment? You can see off to our right the sun is just starting to come down, and it's making the grass glow this beautiful yellow color. Oh, and we have some kudu up ahead as well, which is quite nice, just bounding through that backlit grass, which is very, very pretty. You can see the grass itself is nice and highlighted by the sun. I'm going to go a little bit forward because the kudu are just going to go behind the thicket, so if I just go a little bit forward, we should catch them in the open. There we go. It should be better. So they're just walking across this beautiful open clearing. Just see them there. And a kudu is a great subject for backlight because of the hair all along the back and on that hump on the shoulders. They catch those sun's rays and they outline really, really nicely. So that is a very, very pretty picture. Look at how that grass is glowing a yellow color. Very, very nice. And I can hear the ever-present monotonous larks at the moment. They're also calling away. They've been everywhere in the last few days and since we've had the rain, and it's quite typical of them. They like to follow the rain. I'll try to see if I can find one somewhere. I heard them calling, but they're quite far away from where we are now. Sorry, Mr. Crowned Lapwing. So our monotonous lark is landed over there, but we've also got what looks like some bushveld pipits, or African pipits. I just need to check very quickly. There's one that's just running along. Now that's the monotonous lark that's on top of the branch singing away as they do. They've been very, very vocal the last few weeks, as I was saying, since James found them the other day. So I just want to check on the pipit quickly just to make sure. They do have a very pretty call, don't they? I do enjoy it. So these do look like the African pipit. I just want to make sure. Yes, they are indeed the African pipits that were running around on the road as well. They've disappeared now, but they are on the road, so I'm sure we'll find them as we go again. Thank you for your beautiful call, monotonous lark. Always nice to hear from you, and always nice to add another one to the bird list. We have such spectacular clouds this afternoon as well. It's going to be quite a sunset that we're going to have. As the sun dips below the horizon, all these streaky clouds should pick up all the light, and it would be very, very, very pretty a little bit later. So hopefully we're in a good place to be able to see it. I'll try and find somewhere that's nice. But so far, no signs of these cheetah brothers or any cats. No tracks. Seems all quiet on the eastern front. Now, I want to just carry on a little bit further southwards and check right down to the actual main open area. So while I head that way, let's go back to the ever spiffy looking James Hendry.
Well, that's quite a compliment, don't you think, Brian?
It is.
Ever so spiffy, apparently, I look.
Wonderful.
And cannot but agree, I suppose. Yes. Everybody, we've decided that today is an antelope day on account of the fact that we can't find anything else. Come down to where the elephants were this morning, literally 50 of them at least, and can't find hide nor hair. There's something else of vital importance I needed to tell you. Oh yes, or I wanted to ask you actually. I've forgotten where that term "all quiet on the," it wasn't eastern but western front comes from. Do you remember, Brian? It's from the First War, but I don't know if it was a poem or a song or what it was. So if you could tell me, I'd be most appreciative as we look at the impala in the fading afternoon light, and the one on the right, of course, having a wee-wee. There we go, very nice, thank you. And the other one eating much more regally in the sun and shaking its foot. All Quiet on the Western Front is a novel from a German veteran of World War I. Thank you very much. Can we have his name, please, Megan? Do we have his name? Eric, maybe spell the last word? Eric Maria Remerick. Eric Maria Remerick. Well, there we are then. Horrific time of humanity's history, and hopefully we will not have to repeat it. We've come, well, you know what, let's go to the top of Twin Dams and just see if we can't spot something over the other side. And then we are going to go to the hyena den, aren't we, Brian? Because we like hyenas, don't we?
Yes.
Why do we say hyena, Brian? Do you remember?
Hyena.
Yes.
Who was it?
Yes, it was somebody.
Was somebody saying hyena?
It was with the extra H. It was Tara Dales. And it is now Rebecca Christensen. Hyena. Hyena. Right, let us stop up here. Taylor apparently says there is a giraffe and calf just west of Twin Dams. Giraffe and calf just west of Twin Dams. I can't see them. Can you see them, Brian? No. I am looking, though. No, I don't think there's anything this side of the Twin Dams. I was hoping perhaps maybe Shongalai or Hosanna might be in this vicinity, but they are not. But there is a very pretty sunset going on behind that marula tree. Brian, I suspect you're going to miss that sort of scene.
I will.
As you look out of your flat window in London and see,
I see a nice rose bush.
you'll see a nice rose bush, yes.
Oh, but it's winter, so not so much.
No. You will not see a rose bush. There is a pin-tailed wider. Let's have a look at him. He set up a territory here. They are highly territorial, the pin-tailed widers. He's on the top of that semi-tall tree there. Can you yeah, zoom in there. That tree you've got in the middle of the frame. There you go. Top left. Not anymore. No, it's not that tree. Sorry. Come back a bit. There, he's moving. You got him there. So not, in fact, anything like the tree I pointed at. There, the pin-tailed wider. Nasty parasite, and I've forgotten what it parasitizes, so I'm going to have a look. Ooh. Right. Where is quickly? Where is Tristan at the moment? Can we have information on where Tristan is? And please tell him there is a wild dog in. No, he's at Cheetah Plains. There's a wild dog that's just chased an impala into Sydney's dam, and I know that Jigger won't have signal there. So if Tristan does have the chance to come back, then I think he should. Right, let's just check what this thing parasitizes. It is the common waxbill or the orange-breasted waxbill. Now, what's interesting, of course, is the orange-breasted waxbill you would find here. I don't think I've ever seen it here. Common waxbill also, I'm not sure I've ever seen it either. So clearly they do occur here, if the pin-tailed wider does. Right, apparently Tristan has got something called a moorbirds, and so let's go and find out what a moorbirds is from Tristan on Cheetah Plains.
we did have more birds. Unfortunately, it flew away, so it was a long-tailed paradise wider, which unfortunately flew. The paradise wider is a spectacular bird. It has got these blacks and reds and yellows, so I'll actually show you a picture of it quickly just so you can see. And it was quite an interesting one because it was a male that had not grown his long tail yet, so that is what we were looking at. There was a female and a male, and it had a short little tail that hadn't grown fully all the way out. It could also be that it is starting to lose its plumage as we start going into the winter periods. The male then starts to change, and you see he goes into that coloration during the non-breeding phase. This is when he's in his breeding that he's got these colors, but his body looked like that, except he had a very short little tail. Shame. Well, it seems to still be working because he does have a female with him, but like I say, unfortunately they flew away just as we came to us, so that's not ideal. It doesn't seem like anyone wants to play the game with us. The open area of Cheetah Plains is very quiet. There is no sign of any life. We've got not even Gnormus Norman the GNU is there, so it seems like everybody has decided to take a break from Cheetah Plains for a little bit, which is okay. It still really is incredibly pretty out here, so even though there is no sign of animals or ostriches or anything like that, it is still very pleasant to be out on this side of the world and appreciating the lush green bush in these beautiful golden hues that we have of the late afternoon light. I'm just scanning around. You never know. This is now the heart of where Kuchava has been hanging around. Also Inkanyeni and Vatumi also get seen here. So it's always worth just keeping an eye out for them and look in all the big marulas and check the road every now and then for any signs of footprints. But to be honest, I haven't seen a single track for any of the cats, which is quite strange because generally you come onto Cheetah Plains and because it's not utilized as much as some of the other areas, you find tracks of varying ages all over, and it seems very, very strange that I haven't seen any tracks for any of the cats on any road that I've driven so far, which is not ideal for us. Also, I suppose after the rain that we've had, some of these cats might have made kills inside these thickets, and because there's so much water around, they actually haven't come out to have water, and so they can be in there for a number of days before they actually emerge and you start to see their tracks again. But the temperature this afternoon is also really, really nice. It's quite cool now. The sort of heat of the sun is gone. There's this very slight breeze that's blowing, and it's just a perfect African late summer evening. It's exactly what you would want if you were out here. Not too hot. Oh, the Makwa dove. So unfortunately it's just flown and landed, I think, behind me now, which I can try, see if we can get a picture of it. Let's try. Now I know Taylor was very excited because she saw her Makwa dove this morning, so it's the first one that she's seen in the 6 months since she's been here. But there we go, there's the male Makwa dove just pottering about on the road looking for food. There he is. Now, they're quite easy to identify, the Makwa doves. They have those big black faces, that little red beak, and then that extremely long tail. None of the other doves out here have a tail as long as that, so quite easy to see. And don't you just love how they shuffle around looking for food? His little feet work overtime carrying this larger body around. And off he goes down the road. That's very nice. Thank you, Mr. Makwa dove. I wonder where his female is. You generally see them together. So, Costa, this is an interesting question because it depends what you define as animals. If you're talking about just mammals and you want to know which time of year is best for the most of variety, just mammals tends to probably be the winter months. And I say this because in winter, all the grass tends to die back a little bit, it becomes a little thinner, and it's much easier for us to see. And so we see a lot of the shy, reclusive animals, things like the serval or the pangolins, aardvarks, caracals, wildcats, white-tailed mongoose. A lot easier to see them in the winter months than it is now. Now the grass is so long, even with the spotlight when you go over at night, you can't really see them. Oh, sorry, you've got a little spider web there that I'm going to remove. So in winter you'll probably have a greater diversity of animals. Also, because of the lack of water, you tend to find a lot of animals coming to the same areas and trying to utilize those areas for food. This is quite pretty with this tree. I'm going to try and see if I can line it up with the camera. Herman, is that in line to be able to block out the sun for you? Isn't that very pretty? So in terms of just the animals, I would say winter. If you're talking about, or just the mammals, if we're talking about birds and insects and reptiles and the mammals, then the summer months you're going to have a far bigger variety. Because what happens is we get the rains, and that provides food for a multitude of different animals, and so a lot of birds will migrate southwards from Europe or from Central Africa to come up into these regions to make use of all the insects that are around, or the food that is around. And like I say, it's a really very pretty evening as we're driving along, and that tree was perfectly blocking out the light to make a beautiful sky behind it. The other nice thing about driving here at the moment is because Cheetah Plains has had a little bit more rain, the smells are incredible. It's got this kind of moisture-filled smell in the air where you drive along and there's these little puddles next to the road and lots of fragrant herbaceous plants that sometimes you touch at the edge of the road, and you get these wonderful smells as we drive. So smells of basil and sage and all of those. Well, while we enjoy this spectacular sunset and the smells and sights of Cheetah Plains, let's go across to Taylor and see what wonderful sights and smells she's got for all of you.
I haven't got a wonderful sight just yet, but I have got a couple of smells. Sadly, it's not a sage at the moment. We've got the smell of elephant urine, which stings the nostrils a little bit. And they must have been moving around here today. There's plenty of signs that they were here, and they also looked like they were a bit upset at one point because they were running. Now, elephants don't get scared too easily, and they don't often head into a run, so we're not sure what may have startled them. Maybe a buffalo or a kudu came darting out of the bushes and gave them a bit of a fright. But yes, we haven't had much luck, and I'm sure you're wondering where on earth that giraffe has gone. Very unfortunately for us, there were quite a few different vehicles that were moving around in that giraffe sighting, so we couldn't go in there on foot and disturb them. So we just gave it a little bit of a skip, and perhaps we'll follow up on them another time. But come and have a look here. Look at these mud wallows. They're almost completely dried up now, and the elephants have been having a grand old time here. You can see splashing around, rubbing up quite a bit on this log, using it to scratch themselves. And this would be a great one because of the height, so they could put their legs over, give themselves a nice scratch in between the folds of skin. And I'm sure if we look carefully, we'll find lots and lots of ticks that got caught up in here and that are now dead. But the wood smells, and I don't know if you've ever smelt elephants before, and not an elephant, bull and mus, but the females, and well, just elephants in general, have got quite a strong stench to them, and you can pick it up quite prominently just on the wood here. Let's see what else we've got going on. See if anybody else has been walking around here. Some buffalo. Hello Rainbow, you're only 3 years old and you're asking such fantastic questions. You're wondering if the birdies eat the dirt. Sometimes they do, not always though. It sometimes looks like they're eating dirt, especially when they're picking up ants and termites, you may think so. And there's very few animals that will eat dirt. Sometimes elephants will eat dirt, zebras will eat dirt, and one of the reasons why animals eat the soil is it's called geophagy. Now that's a big word, geophagy, but what it means is that when animals eat soil or earth, and it's so that they can get different nutrients and minerals from that soil. So sometimes the leaves and the grasses that the animals are eating doesn't always have enough nutrients in it or minerals, so sodium, calcium, and they have to eat other things to try and get those nutrients. There were buffalo in here though. Look at all the buffalo tracks. Now, not really new. Oh, careful you don't get stuck in the mud, otherwise we're going to have to dig Rowan out. But you can see they were also sinking in this mud, so I wouldn't want to go and stand in the middle. And remember I said, some of the bigger mud wallows end up becoming death traps because the buffalo on a very hot day will be desperate to try and cool themselves down, and they'll walk into something like this, get themselves too deep, and eventually bog themselves down to their bellies, and then there's nothing that can happen. And exactly like what happened to those buffalo at Arathusa Dam. You remember last year there were 2 Duggar boys that died in that dam from those exact reasons. Right, now we've got to try and get out of here without getting stuck like a buffalo. Now I'm wondering if we're going to catch up to these elephants, because it wasn't too long ago that they were here. But we've also got to get a move on. We've got to make sure that we don't slow down too much. We're going to have to start marching a little bit, because I can just see, and you saw the sunset with Tristan, is that the sun is now going down, and that's not good for us on the walk. So we're going to keep marching a little bit to try and make it safely back to quarantine. And speaking of the sunset, Tristan was talking about it, I was chatting about it, and James seems to have the best view.
Oops. We have a stunning view there of the sun and the clouds and all things to do with it. Is that not just the most magnificent thing you've seen all day long? And if it isn't, well, I'd like you to tell me what else you've seen that is more magnificent than the African sunset, which is going down, isn't it, Brian? Yes. That is just wonderful. From the clouds above it to the mountains below being sort of bathed in gold, if you like. Little redback shrike calling next to us. And we're not too far from Sydney's dam now. I'm not sure what's going on there at the moment, but I just saw this and I thought, this is too good not to share with everybody. And so here we are, sharing it. Isn't that kind of us, Brian?
It is.
So nice of us.
So generous.
We are generous beyond measure, I feel. And also a giant idiot. That really is very special. Yeah, there's something about afternoons like this that make you feel all is right with the world. Well, you know what, that's not true. It's afternoons like this that make you realize how the world continues despite what we make not right about it. And that there is magnificence every single day. There's a smell. I haven't described the smell for some time, so while you look at the sun, I'll just tell you that it smells like... Many of you, of course, have watered your gardens, and you will know what a freshly watered garden smells like. It smells like that a bit, because there is so much water in the soil. There's a smell of life because there's little touch. Every piece of pollen that comes off the grasses and the wild flowers has got a very slight scent to it that sort of touches different pockets of the air with different smells. Sweet. And it just smells like verdancy. I'm not sure that verdancy can have a smell, but it smells, it just smells like life out here. Intermixed with a bit of elephant dung, of course, now and then. Alrighty, Brian, shall we have a go at Sydney's dam? That is really very, very special. Might not be able to find any animals, Brian, but at least we found the sunset. Yes. Right, we're not too far from Sydney's Dam. I'm not going to stop at anything. And while we do that, Tristan apparently would also like to show you that sinking golden orb.
Right, so we also have a beautiful sunset. I don't know if it rivals James's, but it is very, very pretty as well. And the view from here is spectacular. It's nice with these clouds that we have sort of spreading out from the sun. Gives it an effect of it going away from the sun, and they're all catching a bit of light and highlighting up. So it is really very, very pretty. And I like James's description of the smells. Like he said, it smells like life, and it also smells like happiness. And as you drive along, that smell of sort of damp soil with aromatic flowers and herbaceous plants really does fill one with a sense of happiness and life. Right, so now is the time of the day when the cats do start getting active. So maybe our luck is going to change, and we are going to find one of these spotted creatures that lurking about. I don't think we're going to have much luck with lions, but you never know with the leopard. They seem to pop up in the most strange places. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going towards where Tundi and her cub Tumba have been spending a lot of time, around the Muluwanini area, and try and just see if there's any sign of them. I know they went north into Torchwood last night, but I want to go and see if there's maybe at this time of the day they've decided to come back again. Now we are probably going to go through a fairly bad signal area, so if there's a little bit of a black screen, I do apologize. It's amazing to see that there's still actually water on the roads after a week of sunshine. There's still water on the roads, and it's still very damp this side. Djuma is a little bit different. Djuma tends to have quite dry roads at this stage. Now, through this little bit, see what.
Oh, I don't know. We've looked. Hello everybody, we're back again. Herbie was just chatting to me for a moment, just deciding what our plan is over here, because we've been seeing a lot of buffalo tracks. So we were just talking about good vantage points, and that's something to always keep in mind when you are on a walk. And you sort of, once you start walking in the area more often, you then sort of get accustomed to your surroundings, and you remember where certain landmarks are. So big trees, big fallen over trees, massive termite mounds, those types of things. But because we don't always walk in some of these areas, it's always good every now and then when you pick up something, tracks of an elephant, of a breeding herd, or of course buffalo, to just make sure that you know exactly if something does go wrong, what your next move is. It's very, very important to have these little escape routes, because sometimes you get areas where you've got nowhere to go. It's just grassland, a couple of very small trees that are not going to help you get away from an animal, especially going into a drainage system, which we are heading to. And it is still quite warm. It's actually one of the warmer nights we've had. Maybe it's just because we've been walking. And oh, right, enough about me. I didn't quite hear what Megan said James had, but it sounds very exciting. Let's go and take a look.
Well, we're sitting here, it is very exciting, of course, with a wild dog at Sydney's Dam, very long-range view. Couple of Buffelshoek vehicles in the sighting. I wouldn't describe us as actually being in the sighting on account of the fact that we're about 7 kilometers from it. Well, not quite, but about 400 meters or so. And I'm just looking in the... Oh, I can see the impala. Can you see the impala there, Brian? It's just behind the first tree. If you scan across the dam, you can see the impala that is stuck in the water there. Now, these dogs are patient, although I think it was Andrew and I. It wasn't you and me, Brian, or was it you and me? who waited out until the darkness. It was a Nyala in Buffelshoek Dam. That's right. And we waited until it was pitch black dark. And eventually the dogs gave up and moved away. And it was cold, wasn't it? It was winter, I think. And the Nyala got out and survived. So if that impala can just relax in there, hold on until it's dark, the dog will move away. And all around the monotonous larks are calling. Now apparently there were sort of 5 or 6 dogs, I think, probably even more. But the rest of them have probably dispersed off to eat something. And maybe this one probably just chased, probably from the same herd. And I suspect this chap just can't believe his luck. And he's going to try and wait it out. And it is very special, of course, to see these animals, because they are so very rare. I'm sad we had a question this morning about wild dogs and whether they were like wolves, and it would have been so, and I had to describe them, of course, because we didn't have a wild dog on hand. It would have been very nice if we had. The only thing there are 2 things that will pull this dog away from the water here. And the first is if the rest of the pack started making noise and on the back end of them catching something else. And the other is the darkness. Because eventually the dog will try and find the rest of its pack. And Bob, you're wondering if it's normal for it to be out on its own. Well, of course, they're out all the time. It's not that normal for it to be hunting here on its own. And the reason it is, I suspect, like I said, is that it's probably lost the rest of the pack as the pack chased the rest of the herd of impala, giving credence to the sort of latest research on wild dogs that shows that they are not, in fact, particularly coordinated hunters. They're certainly cooperative, but they're not particularly coordinated, and they all just sort of bombshell or shotgun after, whatever individual they think's a good idea. And I suspect this chap chased this impala into the water on its own. And Jamie, you're wondering if wild dogs can swim. They can, but remember, they're quite short, so he's shorter and lighter than the impala that's in the water. And so to pull the impala out of the water would be almost impossible. He'd almost certainly not have a foothold on the ground there, and so to grab it and kill it in the water would be almost impossible for him. So that's why he must wait until it's in much shallower water. I must say these monotonous larks are truly monotonous. Undaunted in the water, of course, or by the water, is the oxpecker that is sitting on the back of the impala's back. Can you see that? There is one there, isn't it? Yes. And luckily for this impala, there doesn't seem to be a crocodile in here. I swear blind I've seen a crocodile in this water before.
Me too.
Yes, you have as well. Because then it would be in serious trouble. I'm afraid I missed that one, Megan. I just got bre bre down in impala. Oh, Charlie, you're wondering if a lone dog would be able to bring down an impala. Charlie, yes. Absolutely, and lone dogs do bring down impala from time to time. It's much more difficult. Quickly, Brian, on the road in front of us, there's a courtship display going on. Look at this. I've never seen this before. It's to Natal Spurfowl. Look at him. He's much bigger than she is, and he keeps opening his wings out and doing a little pirouette. Don't stop now, come on. We will keep an eye on the dogs. I think I just heard the others. Oh, there they are. Brian, they're there. Oh no, it's the same one, sorry. Talking rubbish. Same one. I thought I heard the others calling it. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Brent does that very well. Whoop. Well, we're not going to have too much longer here, of course, because it is now starting to get a bit dark, but we'll sit here for as long as we can. Very nice way to sort of finish our drive, I guess. You can see the frustration, but the dog is not silly enough to go into the water. It knows what will happen. The impala also obviously quite wily, not moving an inch. That's very cool. And just you can see the bubbles coming out of the water. I suspect quite a few catfish now hatched from wherever they were, you know, under the mud, or the eggs perhaps hatched. The oxpeck is having a merry old time, not considering at all the stress that that poor impala must be feeling. Now, I don't know who this individual is or which pack it belongs to, because there were some strange reports or differing reports as to which pack was seen earlier on. Liz, you're saying, will the water sap the impala's energy? No, not sitting there. In winter, cold would be a problem, absolutely. These animals do get, or impalas especially, can get very cold, but it's not actually swimming, it's just standing there. And so rather like a hippo, it's not using any energy at all, other than that it's using to sort of deal with the stress that it feels. And that dog is going nowhere. Well, it's coming towards us now, which is quite nice. But it will be so aware of the impala. And likewise, the impala has moved slightly towards the side. I'll tell you what, it'd be very interesting to know now if it made a run for it, if it gapped it. No, it wouldn't make it. If it moved gently to the side. Because at that distance, at the distance they are from each other, if the impala was to hit dry land now, I don't think the dog would catch it. I think it would quite successfully get away. If I was that impala, I'd be edging slowly towards the edge of the dam. Corin, you're wondering how long it will take the dog to find the rest of its pack. Corin, it really does depend on where the rest of the pack is. It's getting dark now. If the rest of the pack is killed somewhere far from here, then it's quite possible. It's quite possible that the dog will spend the night on its own and then hook up with them tomorrow. But I suspect eventually it will start to call. Once it gets dark and it's given up on waiting for the impala, it will start to call. You see, the impala's not paying attention. Every time that dog turned its head, I would be moving. Like now, the dog's running away slightly. I would be scuttling off to the left-hand side. I wonder if the dog hasn't given up. Now's the time to gap it. Definitely, I think this dog's given up. I'm keeping an eye on the impala while you guys watch the dog. It has given up. You know, as much as I love wild dogs, I always like it when the prey manages to get away. It hasn't quite managed it yet. Have we lost the dog? No, you can still see it, can you? Just going to wait here and see if it doesn't pop out onto the road in front of us. Impala is not quite out the water yet. It stood up a bit, but it's not moving. Oh, I think that's it. I think the dog's gone off. Katie, what a wonderful question from you in the light of what we saw from the drone for the duration of our TV show. And Katie, the thing that the wild dogs caught the most of during those 8 weeks, because although we had them only once on the show, we watched them a few times during those 8 weeks, scrub hares. They eat hundreds of scrub hares. They flush them all the time. They devour them in seconds. And so often we don't even know about it. I'm sure this dog's in here somewhere. Let's just have one last look at the impala, which is still in the water. It's got brain freeze, I think. All right, let's move back a bit and see if we can't spot whether the dog is going to cross this cut line coming maybe into Djuma. If we do lose signal, Megan, we may well lose signal if we move too much here. I think we were quite lucky to have it where we are. Very brave, going to say goodbye to you. No.
Right, sorry about that. It seems as though James had hit a gremlin spot over there, bad signal patch, but at least you had some wild dogs to keep you company and entertain for the last 10 minutes, which is wonderful. I think it can't be a bad day if you've seen an elephant or if you've even seen a wild dog. Now, it is getting exceptionally dark out here. We actually can't stay out here for very much long, not at all. We're starting to struggle to see the things that are just about 50 meters away from us, but luckily we're safe. We're almost home. We're on quarantine now, which is good, but it has been a wonderful afternoon out in the bush today. Really, really quite lovely. The sun has set. It gave us a beautiful sunset. There's a couple of clouds, and hopefully they aren't too thick tonight. We want to see the nice clear sky. So I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. So a big thank you from the whole Bushwalk team. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we will see you soon for the sunset safari tomorrow afternoon. But from all of us, big thank you again. But I'm going to send you across to Tristan, and hopefully he finds some creatures of the night.
Indeed we have. So we've come to the hyena den just to see if there was any sign of Ribbon in the last rays of light, and there she's lying with her two little cubs who are in pretty much the same position as they were this morning with James. Seems like they are loving feeding off mom still, and so they're lying there and probably getting their last feed before she begins to stand up and move away. Now, it is getting to that time of the day where she in all likelihood will move off fairly shortly, but I think we've timed it perfectly, which is great for us. So I'm really excited to see them because I've been to this den, and the first time I came here, Ribbon was standing by herself just at the edge of the entrance, and there's no sign of the little ones. So this is my first time that I'm actually seeing the little ones, and aren't they so cute? There's nothing cuter than a little baby hyena. I really enjoy them. They've got so much character as little babies, so to be able to spend time with them is really quite spectacular. Also, just to have the little ones around and have the hyenas around is also very, very cool indeed. That one is almost on its back, suckling. You can see its back legs are in the air, and it's almost wedged itself underneath mom to get access to one of her nipples to be able to start drinking. So there is only 2 on a hyena, and that's why they only have 2 at a time maximum. They cannot have any more because there's no space for any more to suckle. So these 2 at least have their own place, and each one will try and suckle off there and be able to get the nutrients that they need to survive. It's just such a special time of the day. Like I say, the light is just starting to fade. These little ones are busy feeding. There's some beautiful sounds that are coming out of the bush. There's some scops owls that are starting to call. Pearl-spotted owlets in the background. The doves are calling their last call, as well the Cape turtle dove. So it is really quite pleasant just to sit quietly and listen to what's going on. Matt, who's 10 years old. Lovely to have you with us, Matt. You're wondering how fast these hyenas run. Well, Matt, they don't run very fast. Because of their size and their bulk, they tend to be a little bit slower than what the cats are. So an adult hyena will be able to run at about 60-65 kilometers per hour. So in miles, that would be... Sure, I'll have to work it out for you. But I'm not 100% sure. It would be divided by 1.6, so... Like I was saying earlier, maths is not my strong point, Matt. But I'll work it out in my head as we go. But they are designed more to be able to do long distances. So rather than something like a cheetah, which is perfectly designed for high speed, a hyena is designed for power and for endurance. So these guys can run for kilometers and kilometers and miles without fatiguing. And that means that they have had to sacrifice a bit of speed to be able to do that. So that's why they are a little bit slower. So, like I say, about 60-65 kilometers an hour, which would be about, I would say, 35 miles an hour, somewhere there. But Ribbon looks as though she's fast asleep. Her breathing is very, very slow and quite sort of deep. The only reason you'll see the tail flicking every now and then in the ears is because of the amount of flies that we have at the moment. They've been particularly bad today, and driving towards the den was quite challenging. I've been hit by a number of beetles in the face and flies in the face as we were going, to kind of squint through our eyes as we were trying to get here to see if we could get them before it got too dark. So I can feel her pain, and that's why she's so active with the tail at the moment. The cubs don't seem to be too scared about it or too worried about it. Their ears are not twitching too much, so it seems like they're not being bothered. I suppose when you are busy feeding off mom and you know you're getting lots of nice nutrient-rich milk, there's not too many cares in the world. Now what surprised me is that every time we've been here, it's only ever been Ribbon and these cubs. So, and it's interesting to see that there's no others that have joined. I would have thought that some of the others might have come through and just been curious as to what's going on, and we keep seeing tracks for them moving around this area, so it's strange that we haven't found more than this hyena here at the den. Now Deborah, you noticed the spots on Ribbon, and you're wondering why the little ones don't have the spots the same as the mother does. Well, they will get them, and it's just going to take a bit of time. So when they're born this dark coloration, and that will be just for camouflage. When they go down into the hole is going to be very, very dark. So if they curl into a tight little ball inside there, if another predator comes and looks around inside the den, they'll be able to kind of look, and they won't see this dark little object in the corners where it's very, very shadowed and hard to see. Whereas when they get a little bit older and they're actually moving through the grass, if they're dark in coloration like they are now, and they had to go through the grass, they're going to contrast against the grass quite a bit and be easily seen. And so it's better for them to have that spotted coat. It just helps them break up the outline, much like what you would see with a leopard or a cheetah, and allows them to camouflage a little better. Even though hyenas don't hunt using ambush, they still want to lurk around undetected as much as possible, particularly if they're trying to sneak up onto another predator. They want to get close and then rush in and cause that predator to panic and run off so that they can then grab the carcass and move away. Bobby, well, unfortunately in the hyena society, for the females, no, the fathers are never around to help too much. They do help, I suppose, in that they are part of the clan system, so they will help with robbing of food from other predators or hunting of food that will then ultimately lead to nutrition for the young ones, but they don't actively spend time at the dens protecting the young ones or sort of nurturing them or grooming them or looking after them in any way. The female does all of that. She makes sure that these little babies are in good condition and that they are fed and healthy and protected. The male just does the job of actually protecting the area and making sure no other hyenas are around. And if another predator had to come here and this female started fighting with that other predator, the noise of what she was making would have attracted the rest of the clan members, and both male and female from the clan will run in to help this particular female and make sure that she gets the necessary protection that she needs. Ultimately, even if she's a low-ranking female, now Ribbon I think is midway in the hyena structure in this particular clan, even if she's slightly lower, ultimately she still forms part of the clan and she still helps with the defending of the area and providing of food. So, you know, the clans want to be as strong as possible and they want as many as they can in their clan, so they will defend everyone as much as possible. So I'm going to try just move a little bit forward just so that we can maybe see Ribbon's face. It is starting to get quite dark, so we're not going to be able to spend too much longer here. We don't want to be at the den during the really dark periods. We don't want to attract any attention with our lights and make any other predator come here and investigate what's going on. So I think probably within the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes we're going to have to leave Ribbon and her little ones to themselves. So, Sad, you want to know who the dominant female is of this clan? Well, as far as I know, it's a hyena by the name of Madam. Tad, not Sad. Well, I'm sorry that I said your name wrong. Tad, the dominant female is a female by the name of Madam. I actually don't think I've seen her yet. I'm trying to learn all of these hyenas. I used to see a different clan to the west of Djuma in Simambili and Elephant Plains. So I'm trying to get to recognize all the new hyenas that we see here. But as far as I know, Madam is the matriarch of this clan and the leader of this group of hyenas. And I'm quite looking forward to seeing her. She sounds like she's quite a big girl. And some of the hyenas that we saw in the western side of that were the matriarchs were massive, massive, massive hyenas. So it would be nice to see her and see how she compares relative to the others. Okay, well, I think unfortunately it's gotten a little bit dark now, and like I said, I don't want to spend too much time here in the dark. I don't want to attract any attention to this little den site, so I think we're going to make our way out. But wasn't it great just to get a little glimpse of the little ones as they're feeding? So while we make our way out and go in search of other things, let's go back to James and see what his update is on the wild dog impala saga.
We are up to looking at elephants, aren't we, Brian?
Kind of.
What do you mean, kind of? Look at it, we can see its tooth. Otherwise, it is fairly well hidden by the dimming of the day. Have we had enough of that elephant sighting? Okay. We're heading towards Buffelshoek Dam to see if we can't find a leopard lying on the dam wall. Oh, I must just tell you that Lex Hess, of whom we have spoken many times, a doyen of the guiding industry, if it may be described as an industry, is driving out of... Ooh, that one's a bit bigger. I'll just talk a bit more quietly here. We're not going to shine a light on the elephant, but talking of leopards that used to be hang around at Buffelshoek Dam, Mvula was one of those. And for those of you who don't know, Mvula, a roughly 13-year-old male leopard who we used to see very regularly, we haven't seen for a long time, but apparently he's in very good condition and set up residence north of Sydney's Dam where we were today. Yes, the Mega 9, thank you. I know it's extremely dark. We just quickly want to let this elephant disappear and then we'll carry on moving forward. There we go. Right, we put those lights back on. We investigate the spotlight, of course. It's been a long time since I've had to use a spotlight. Well, since this morning, but I mean in the Why am I whistling? I've never whistled before. Let's see what's going on here. Well, we're going to quickly go across to Tristan. Well, we just don't have.
So, sorry about that. James is going through a little bit of a bad signal patch. Jigger has got a few little glitches on it, and so there's a few areas where he struggles to hold on to his signal. So, you're back with me, unfortunately. So, the elephants, I think, we're moving off anyway as well. So, like I was saying, we've left the den site now, and it really has gotten quite dark. So, I think I'm going to probably have to start getting my spotlight out. Look for any signs of nocturnal animals. So we're going to look for signs of some bush babies or any of the lurking nocturnal animals that should start waking up now. It might be a little bit early for those, but it is starting to get dark enough, I would say. I'm going to just go and check along our western boundary just to see maybe, just maybe, there's some sign of the Nkuhumas somewhere. Now, they've been very elusive over the last few weeks. They've been spending most of their time up on Simbabili, and I think that's because of the Torchwood Pride, which has started to be seen quite regularly in Buffelshoek and Torchwood itself, and it's a very big pride. That is 9 females and 10 cubs, so it's 19 of them, and then if you add that the 4 Birminghams, I think, are the fathers of those cubs, it goes up to 23 in that pride, which is quite a large pride. So I think they've been putting a bit of pressure on the Nkuhumas, and that's why the Nkuhumas have shifted and moved a little bit further west than they have been the past few months. Maybe we get lucky and they start moving in our direction. Well, I know James went over to Arathusa as well to go and look around for them and for any signs of shadow. So the western boundary is also a good place to look for shadow. She has been up and down that area over the last few days. I've seen her tracks quite a bit, so we'll also be looking out for her as we go that way. So Amit, all the way from London, since we're talking about Shadow, you actually wondering what's happening with Shadow and has there been any update on her? Well, Amit, I know that nobody's really seen her, so she hasn't been seen for a while, but her tracks, as well as the tracks of the young ones, I've actually seen now twice this week, or weekend should I say. I saw them yesterday afternoon, her tracks with the 2 little ones, moving towards where James was at the start of drive around Red Dam area, and a few days before that I actually saw them going towards that from another area. So the cubs seem to be alive and well. It looked like a set of 2 tracks and her, so I would imagine that the cubs are okay, and that's good news. Obviously with Shadow, she can be a little bit elusive, so it's just a matter of time. If we can just find where she's actually hiding them and storing them, then we can start spending a little bit of time, because they've actually opened up that sighting now and they're allowing us to go and actively look for her den site, which is great news. It means that we can actually start to try and see if we can find her with her little ones. I'm still very jealous of James and his sighting he had of those cubs. They are so cute. And I was fortunate enough to see Shadow's last cubs a few times, and they are adorable. The last one she had these bright sapphire blue eyes, very, very cute little things, and they were both quite relaxed actually. They were much like Shongile and Hosana. They weren't really too worried about vehicles, even when they were still small. So it would be great to start trying to find these little ones and start getting them used to vehicles, because they're starting to get on a little bit now. I think they must be approaching almost 3.5 to 4 months old, which means that because of the lack of exposure they've had to vehicles, they're going to be quite nervous of them. So it's now is the time that we need to start trying to actually put in a bit of effort to see if we can find her and spend some time around the cubs, so as to make sure that they get used to the vehicles and are not too stressed about the vehicles being around. Also, they're starting to get to that age where Shadow is going to start taking them towards carcasses. Megan, not me, are inquiring about the Torchwood Pride, and so that's quite funny. So Megan, who's in our final control, was saying she's asking a question from Megan, who's a viewer and not herself. So I apologize, Megan, and Megan in final control. So Megan, the Torchwood Pride got the name from Torchwood itself. They spend a lot of time on a property called Torchwood, which lies to the eastern side of Djuma, and they spend a lot of time there. It's also a name for a tree that is quite prevalent in that area, and so that's where they've gotten their name from, as far as I know. We actually don't see the Torchwood Pride nearly enough to know a lot about them. They spend most of their time inside the Kruger National Park in Manyeleti, and they kind of do these things where they flitter in for a few months and then out again, and we don't see them for weeks on end. So I don't know too much as to why they were named it, but I would imagine it's because of the area known as Torchwood, where they are seen fairly regularly. Now we're just approaching these little mud wallows close to Shibamo Road, and it's always a great place for frogs, and I can already hear them bleating away. So I'm actually going to just get a little bit closer before I turn off, and then we can just listen to the beautiful sounds of these painted reed frogs. Isn't that spectacular? You can hear a few bubbling casinas, which is that popping sound, and then that metallic sound is the painted reed frog that I was talking about just now. That's spectacular. So nice just to sit and listen to the sounds of the frogs in the enveloping darkness. And the sky, of course, has just got its last little bit of light over the western horizon. It's pretty dark to the east now, but the west is still just a little bit of rays poking over the Drakensberg Mountains, still illuminating a bit of the skyline. Now, the frogs that I was talking about, I'm going to show you exactly which ones they were, so you can know, like I was talking about, they are different species, and the metallic sounding frog that we're hearing the most is a beautiful painted reed frog. So that is what it looks like. It's very, very pretty. It's got these incredible markings that you see there, these blacks and yellows with reds on the legs, and you can see they have different markings depending on the type that you can find, so quite variable in their colors. Sometimes they have spots, and there's the drab brown ones. So those are one of my favorite frogs. And then the other one that we're hearing, which sounds like a bubble popping, is the bubbling cassina. And that is the bubbling cassina there, which is also quite a pretty little frog. Right, so from frogs, let's go across to James, who's got a feathered friend in the darkness.
This is the day of the Natal spurfowl. Now, we're not going to sit here for long, and we have just got the very light wash of the side light on that bird, but it is a Natal spurfowl roosting very cleverly, I think, in the fork of a knobthorn tree. And if Brian zooms out, it will quickly become completely invisible. How cool is that? We've had some wonderful sightings of those birds today. Couple this morning, nice display this afternoon. And there we have it. Oh, so tired. Just going to go to sleep now, Brian. All right, let's move on. I said to Brian, as we were driving along here, I said, what do you think we should talk to? Because, talk about. We know who we're going to talk to, that's you. But I bet Tristan has covered, well, we could see bush babies or genets or civets, etc. And Brian said, let us talk about insects that hit us in the face. And I said that was a good idea. And then also, let's talk about the lack of chameleons that are around to eat the insects. I have seen one chameleon this season. Brian, how many have you seen? And that was with you?
I've seen two.
Two.
No, three.
Three, the whole summer?
Yep.
Which is just a very poor return, really. We do spend a lot of time out here. So I don't know where they've all gone. I suspect, like everything else, their balance has been slightly upset by the drought that we had that is now palpably over. Bill, a very nice question from you. You say, is it... Good grief. There are holes all over the place. You say, is it true that insects kill more people than mammals do? Well, if you consider the Anopheles mosquito, which is the host or one of the hosts of the malaria parasite, then yes, many, many more. I suspect you'll also find that things like bees, people who are allergic to bees, I suspect more people are killed by bees than they are by mammals every year. Well, maybe that's not true, but potentially. But if you consider the mosquito, I would say absolutely. There is without question many, many times, tens of times more people are killed by malaria than they are killed by mammals. And, you know, I was reading, there's this wonderful book that I mentioned this morning called Last Chance to See, two of them, and the latest one gives statistics on sharks. Now, most people are terrified, or many people are terrified of swimming in the sea because of the dangers of sharks. An average of 5 people are killed by sharks on a yearly basis. That's around the world, 5 people. And then you get wonderful other statistics about other things that kill people. The number of people who die choking, the number of people who die falling out of their beds, the number of people killed by cows, something in the region of 20,000 a year are killed by cows. So cows far more dangerous than sharks. And likewise, the same would go for many of the African mammals that we have out here. I suspect buffalo probably kill about the same number of people as sharks do. Elephants probably about the same. Hippo maybe a few more. But certainly nothing like the number that we kill. And the most amazing statistic in this book was, of course, that sharks kill 5 of us every year. We kill over 1 million sharks every single year. More than 1 million sharks are killed by the greed and absolute idiocy of humanity. Isn't that sad? Hello, Jill. A nice question from you about tropical diseases, the difference between tick bite fever and malaria. Malaria, Jill, is caused by a parasite called Plasmodium that lives inside mosquitoes and human beings. So it's in mosquitoes, not ticks. Tick bite fever is a bacteria, if I'm not mistaken, or bacterium, or is caused by a bacterium. There is a bronze-winged courser on the road. It's flown away, has it? A bacterium that is harbored in ticks out here. The one substantially less serious than the other. So if you get tick bite fever, you just take a few, I think it's doxycyclines or tetracyclines, one of those antibiotics, and you'll be fine after a few days. Sometimes you don't even need to take anything for it, unless it's really bad, you have to. But malaria, of course, is a real killer around Africa if you cannot get to medical help soon enough. It's not difficult to cure if you can, especially with modern medicine. There is the bronze-winged courser. And Bobby, you say, do we use bug spray when we're out? I tell you, I don't. And I don't because, you know, if something is radical enough to kill a tick, so it's DDT or whatever it is, it's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for your skin. And although nobody has done extensive testing on it, I'm just not prepared to put that stuff on my skin. And out here, you can get away with not doing it. You can also apparently use tea tree oil mixed with, what was the other thing that is supposed to be mixed? Citronella. And that apparently is quite effective at getting rid of ticks and stopping them biting you. So that sort of thing you could use. But I am very careful of using bug sprays because I'm just not sure. You know, somebody said to me once, if it kills a tick, if it's able to kill a tick and a mosquito and a fly, like insect repellent, for example, at least insect spray, that you'd put in the air, you don't want to be breathing that in, because if it's harming another living organism, so I don't use it. Brian, you use it when you walk.
No, not really.
You wear long pants quite often, all those long gaiters, yeah. Alrighty, let's head across to Tristan and see if he has managed to find his bush baby.
So, here we have in the road another bronze-winged courser. They have been everywhere from when we left where the frogs were. They have literally been, I don't know, maybe 15, 20, what do you think, Herman? At least, somewhere around there. So Herman reckons 40. I don't know if we've had that many. They now are very, very pretty birds, but I've never seen so many of them as we've seen in the last few weeks. They are literally on every road, and multiple pairs as well. It's really nice to see, because obviously at night we don't see that many birds, so to have quite a few nocturnal birds around is quite special. Right, I don't want to blind this bird for long. There we go. Let's let it fly off. Also, the problem with sitting still at the moment, holding a spotlight, is the amount of insects that are flocking towards it. Getting my dinner before I actually get back to camp at this rate. I think I've swallowed a number of insects already. I saw Taylor this morning had her little episode with a fly. She was telling me about it and how the fly got into her mouth, and she was coughing and spluttering trying to get rid of it, and she was telling me it was one of those big nasty blue bottles, which are those really big flies, and they are not something you would want in your mouth. They are on every little bad thing that is in the bush. So if it is rotten meat, they are there. They are on feces of a number of predators, so in your mouth is not the place that you want it. But other than that, I haven't actually even heard any sounds of hyenas calling. There's been no sounds for any alarm calls, so it sounds all a little bit quiet at this stage. I was hoping that maybe we would get some luck as the darkness arrived, but alas, we haven't. I suppose we've still had a fairly pleasant afternoon. Oh, sorry, black-bellied bustard. I didn't want to blind you. There was a black-bellied bustard on the edge of the road there. It was all tucked up sleeping until we came round. But we have had a good day, actually. We've had the wild dogs and chasing the impala, which is a very cool sighting. And then we had the hyenas, we had giraffe, elephants. So all in all, it's actually been quite nice. And the weather and the views and the scenery today has also just been absolutely spectacular. Beautiful cloud banks with that beautiful light as well. There's a vehicle up ahead here, so we're going to take a different route to what they're on. So as we're kind of going along, the spotlight is very useful to shine around to look for any eyes that could be reflecting back at us and giving us an indication that there is an animal out there. And in the area that we're in currently, there's a lot of silver cluster leaf trees, which are great trees for bush babies. We often see bush babies on a silver cluster leaf, which is all these trees on the fringes of the road as I'm driving that have this kind of silvery grey appearance to them. So I'm looking very carefully for a sign of a little bush baby. So we get those lesser galagos here. They are very cute little things. Those explosive legs that they jump around. Always quite entertaining to watch. Difficult to actually get on camera though, because they move so fast. They often don't sit very still. We actually had quite a nice sighting the other day. I think I was with Dave and one sat out in the open for us, which was nice. And I believe you were chatting about insects and which one kills more than animals, and James was saying malaria by a long way. I would actually think that malaria is probably more than all of the other mammals combined, particularly. So I would say insects win that hands down. Alright, so talking of the man himself, Mr. Hendry, let's go back across to him and see what he's gotten up to in the last little bit.
As we...
Alright, James, are you okay?
No, Brian, I'm not okay. I was hit in the eye by an insect.
Oh, James, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Brian. I'll be all right. Let's go on to quarantine clearings. I must just remind you all that we will not be having a sunrise safari tomorrow on account of the fact that our night has just begun. We'll be going out almost as soon as we get home with new cameras to check out what's going on in the darkness with special night vision cameras. And so, because of the fact that we will be awake for so very long for the rest of today, we will not be awake tomorrow morning for a sunrise safari. That's going to be tomorrow and the next day. If another insect hits me in the same eye, I'm going to be very cross. I nearly said I'm going to kill it, but of course that would be silly because I won't be able to find it, will I, Brian?
No. Well, you will. It'll be in your eye.
Yes, it will be in my eye. Swimming, kicking and exuding some kind of vile acid that burns it. I'm sorry, we have to turn the lights off, of course. If you have just joined us, one of the main reasons we have to do these tests for these cameras is that we can't shine on diurnal animals because the lights freak them out. It harms their eyes, we think, and so it would be very nice, especially today as the full moon comes up, to use a camera that's able to utilize just the moonlight rather than having to spotlight the animals. And of course, if you're watching animals hunt, you can't put lights on them and all that sort of thing. So that's the point of these tests. And they will hopefully also be used in Kenya when we go off there later this year. Goodness, there are a lot of insecta around. The other advantage, of course, is if you don't need a light, you don't get savaged by every six-legged creature in the area. Right, so a reminder, no sunrise safari tomorrow or the next day, I'm afraid. It's only going to be the sunset safari. Am I looking into the lens, Brian? I can't tell.
Yes.
Yes, I am. Good. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming on our drive today. It was rather wonderful, I think, at the end there. Wild dogs. Spectacular stuff. And a big thank you to you, Brian, for your efforts. I think I can see you in the back there. A big thank you to Megan May, Admiral Nelson in the final control. She did a sterling job. We will see you all, of course, tomorrow. No, we won't. Yes, tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So until then, stay safe and happy wherever you are. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.